Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Distory Nite Shift, your home of late-night conversations for Disney history lovers. My name is Kate, the Disney Cicerone, and I'm joined by fellow Disney historian and creator of E82, the Epcot Legacy, Joshua L. Harris. Tonight, we're going to be taking you on a walking tour of some of the history we found at D23 2026, including some rare finds, hidden gems, and moments that made our historian hearts happy. We'll also be discussing some of the announcements for the fate of the parks and giving our 2 cents about it based on our combined 55 years of Disney history study. So let's clock in for tonight's special D23 Distory Nite Shift. Joshua, are you ready to relive this past weekend?
Only if it doesn't require me getting up early or having to stand in a virtual queue. Other than that, I'm all there for it.
The virtual queue is the nicer ones compared to the standby lines. So I think I'm done with lines for a good long while after D23. Yeah. Basically, for this episode, we wanted to start off by giving you some of the history highlights of things that we found at D23. A lot of things that are maybe not being talked about because they're kind of the quieter stories of D23. We're going to do kind of like a little virtual walking tour of the 3 days that we spent there and what we saw. And for those who missed the expo, some of the panels or maybe some of the corners of the showroom that no one couldn't maybe saw, or, you know, because you can't possibly do everything at an event like this, right, Joshua? It's like, it's so huge. Like, you kind of have to pick and choose what you do. And so we know that not everybody, even those people who do love history that did get there, maybe they didn't even see everything that there was to see history-wise, especially because you have to like pick and choose which panels you go to and all that kind of thing. So let's start off with day one of D23. And I did want to mention that I got there about pretty close to 9 a.m. when they opened things. And so you might have seen this giant showroom waiting room that was just chaos. And Joshua met up with me there. And it was interesting because the previous years they had like pulled people from lines one at a time. And this year, like, I think they held people too long because it was just mass chaos running through the door. And so that was a little bit of an experience to start. It was exciting, to say the least. But we made a beeline after. I did some shopping with some virtual queues, which is not usually what I do, but I had virtual queues, so I used them. But we headed for the model of Carolwood Pacific Railroad that was over at the Walt Disney Family Museum booth. And we met somebody named Mark Hurt. Do you want to talk about meeting Mark Hurt there, Joshua?
Yeah. Well, I think I was the first person to actually see their booth, and when I saw the model of Walt Disney's home with the railroad and everything, I'm just like, oh my God, I gotta go see Kate. She's gonna love this. And sure enough, you took out the camera right away and started filming immediately. And I talked with the people for a little while. It actually was the booth for, even though the star of the show was really the model for the house. It was for the Walt Disney Family Museum, so we got to know some great people from that one as well.
Yeah.
So getting to know Mark Hurt, I mean, like he's one of the hidden gems now for historical research, and just like an amazing wealth of information. He was one of the people who did a lot of the flora and fauna manufacturing for, or the dark ride sections for the Universe of Energy, Listen to the Land, as well as I am forgetting one here. Oh yeah, Spaceship Earth as well. Anything that involves plants that were not actual plants. He was pretty much in charge of that. And then, as you can see on the screen right there and everything, you can see the $100 bill. That is the little ribbon there that has the holographic. It's not holographic, but it's a little
like it. Yeah.
illusion effect that where it changes from like a Liberty Bell to an 100 symbol. He actually was the person who designed that.
Invented it.
So like 85% of counterfeiting has completely been eliminated thanks to his little ribbon there that he has on there, and how to manufacture the entire process. So that's one of the reasons why that there's a $100 bill in there.
Before we move on from Mark Hurt, he did quite a lot of other fascinating things, including building a home for himself that's a replica of Disneyland's Haunted Mansion. So this is not a Haunted Mansion. This is a picture of his house, which is incredible. And then he also did things like invented the ChromaDepth 3D glasses, the holographic potato chip bags. He also built himself a replica of the Carolwood barn, of Walt Disney's Carolwood barn. So Diane Disney Miller came out and autographed the wall, which was really cool. So he's quite an amazing person to have gotten to interact with, and we were really grateful for that time. But they did want to build this model, and we went to an evening program by the Walt Disney Family Museum where he actually talked about how he built it. And it was really fascinating to hear more about it. I won't go too deeply into it just because of time, but it was something they agreed to build for a Christmas celebration in 81 days, but it took 7 people 61 days to build it. They slept on the floor and worked around the clock 7 days a week to get this done in time. And it was a computer router that carved out the model, but everything on the model is made from scratch. So it's really incredible to see the details on this thing. The family wanted to capture some of their favorite memories at the house, since one of the things they always remembered was Christmas time. And so they put Christmas lights on the house and some Christmas trees out front, and they used fiber optics to capture that. You can see them designing the little trees by hand here. And then also, I can't remember how they did this grass. Do you remember exactly how they did applying the grass to the model?
It was some sort of like electrostatic process where it had like, it's made of some semi metal which they go ahead and they put it on there, and then they magnetically pull it so it pulls up to make it look like grass. Really interesting thing. And then they had this, like, it looked like a vacuum tube type of thing. It wasn't a vacuum, but it was something much more fancy that they just like put it down and then just made it so that all of these like little particles went up so it looked like real grass. So
yeah,
really fascinating stuff.
So here's what the model looks like itself. Here's where you can see the Christmas lights on the side. And then an overview of the whole thing. Really incredible model. They had to use some specific trains that were Jupiter trains that I think they were made so that they could run all the time instead of just like breaking all the time, because they're not designed to run constantly like they would on these models. Here's an overview from the top, and it really is just a scale model of the Carolwood Pacific Railroad at Walt Disney's Carolwood estate there. Do you want to talk about this cutaway a little bit there, Joshua?
Yeah. So for those people who don't know, there was a really cool S-curve tunnel that Walt incorporated inside of there. And the reason why he did that is because Lily wanted to keep her rose garden, which was directly above it. So instead of going ahead and blowing out everything and just having it go straight through, he had a tunnel system that was there. Which is really, which he was insistent on making it an S-curve, even though it cost like twice the amount of money that it would do as a straightaway, because when you get to a certain point, it actually blacks out and it becomes dark. So it's a pretty cool effect when you do that. Well, when they're getting to do this model, the thing that they encounter is just like, okay, well, what if the engine gets trapped in there and we have no way of getting to it?
Right.
So Mark Hurt came up with this really awesome idea. It's just like, why don't we make that an actual feature instead of a bug? Which is really interesting if you think about it from a creative standpoint, because a lot of the times with us creatives, we have something that's a block. It's just like, well, why don't you just enhance the block and why use that to your advantage? So they came up with this little cutaway where you can actually see that they've got little struts and stuff in there, so that if it does break down, when they've got the train in there, you can actually fish it out from the side of the model right there, and it allows people to actually look inside to see what's actually in there.
Yeah.
So that one is a really cool aspect of that, and it really got me to thinking just from a creative perspective, because as people know, I'm also a graphic designer and everything. So I'm just like, well, whenever you're having a problem, maybe you can make that problem into something that works to your advantage. So really appreciated that. So
yeah, I love that lesson. That's great. They did point out that there's a couple of figures that are inside this model that if you didn't go to this talk that we went to, you might not know what they are. There's actually Salvador Dali sitting on a bench here with a woman next to him because they were friends, him and Walt Disney. Then also up near the pool, we see Ron and Diane by the pool. And they also said that they threw a little Pixar ball in the pool, which you can kind of see on the left-hand side there, just floating in the pool as just a little nod to that. Next to the pool, kind of in the grass area, is Walt Disney and his wife Lillian. And he's actually reading a script, because that's something he often did at home, is he would bring scripts home to read. So I love that they captured that detail in this model of what Walt Disney might be doing at home. It's not necessarily playing or relaxing, but reading and working. So I thought that was fun. They also gave out these cards that are like a reproduction of what Walt Disney would give to people when they came to his house and visited the railroad, which I thought was really fun. Little detail to collect. So, do you have anything else you want to add about that before we move on, Joshua?
No, it was really cool to meet the staff for the Walt Disney Family Museum, and
it was
figure out make connections with them. So it was really fun for that. There's also there's lots of like personal stories that are associated with D23 for this, and like me and Mark Hurd really I told him about what I do and everything. He was really enamored with that, and he really loves that. So he says that a lot of my music albums and everything are now going to become the soundtrack to his workshop, which is going to be great.
It's so special. I love that.
So made a new friend, made lots of new friends in that, but he was one of my new favorite new friends for that.
The staff of the Walt Disney Family Museum were such lovely people. Like we couldn't stay away. We just kept going back because it kind of like, it's almost like you kind of find like a home at D23 that you kind of like check in with every day. And that was kind of like that little corner, where the little history corner was our home. So we would just,
I mean, by the end of the time, it's just like, Bree, do you have a pin for me and everything? And we just like, we're almost like working side by side with this. It was just so funny. So
yeah, it was really lovely though to be among people who also really appreciate and love Walt Disney and want to, preserve his heritage. I think it was very special to get to do that. That being said, that wasn't the only place that had Walt Disney's heritage being preserved, because right next door was the Walt Disney Hometown Museum from Marceline. And they had something called a friendship quilt that you could actually sign. I have a picture of Joshua signing, and mine is right above his, whatever he wrote there. Yeah. But they also had there a car from what was known as the Midget Autopia. Obviously, we don't use that terminology anymore, but that is what it was called when it was in Disneyland. It's basically like the car that the little kids could get in. It's like the Autopia for the little kids. They had 3 Autopias in Disneyland because it was just that popular back then, which might surprise people today, but it really was so popular that adding more cars was a plus for them, because more people would get to drive in a day. And so this one they're tiny little cars, so I chose not to climb in it just because it would have been hard for me to get back out. But I did sit on top of it here, and you can see that car in that display. But the other thing I really loved about Walt Disney's Hometown Museum was all of these little stories that they put kind of on the high shelf all around the corners of it, and they had photos next to them. And so I just want to share 2 of them with you guys. There's a whole bunch. I think there's like 20 or something, but I just want to share 2 of them real quick. One was called Roy's Popcorn, and it said Walt Disney's imagination could light up the world, but it was Roy, the steady, big-hearted brother by his side, who helped turn all that magic into something real. Walt may have been the dreamer, but Roy was the anchor, guiding those dreams with his sharp business sense and unwavering support. Roy's hardworking spirit showed up early, even back on the Disney farm in Marceline. His first entrepreneurial adventure was wonderfully simple. He planted popcorn, harvested it, packaged it with care, and sold it in town. And so the next time you're wandering down Main Street USA at Disneyland with the warm, buttery box of popcorn in hand, give a little nod of thanks to Roy. His quiet dedication helped make the magic. So that was really lovely. So
yes,
there's that story that's kind of Main Street focused, and then this one was as well, which I hadn't really thought about this before. So this was a little new for me, Joshua. So it says Hutchinson's Furniture and Undertaking is the title for this one, but it says Roy O. Disney had an entrepreneurial spirit from the beginning. Roy often looked after his little brother Walt, finding them both odd jobs around town. One of their more colorful chores came from the Hutchinson's Furniture and Undertaking, where the brothers cleaned the town's horse-drawn hearse. Hutchinson's name lives on above a restored Coca-Cola mural, a cherished landmark adjacent to Main Street, USA. Marceline left a mark on Walt's heart, and the charming Coca-Cola mural, along with the Zerker building beside it, helped spark the inspiration for the Coca-Cola refreshment corner on Main Street, USA at Disneyland. So I had not realized that there was a Coca-Cola connection with Walt for that. And so this just proves I need to go to Marceline. So... But anyway, I don't know if you got to read any of those stories or found anything interesting in that area.
Yeah. Well, one of the great things about both of us doing this event together is that we both we have a lot of intersections, but there's several differences as well. So I've spent most of my time hobnobbing, schmoozing,
Chatting.
networking, organic networking, whatever it is with the people and everything. So I knew that you were going to take the footage and everything and explain it later. So I'm just like I'm going to go ahead and talk to these people over there for a second. So
Yeah, Kate took all the pictures and the reading and the research, and you did all the talking, and it worked out really well. We worked as a team, so it
yeah,
was great
exactly.
fun.
Yeah. Because like half the time I'm telling them how amazing your stuff is and everything. So,
We love to do that.
that was really great that way. So,
But it was
yeah.
very sweet that somebody from Hometown Museum said they already knew and loved my content, which was very nice. So they're very wonderful people, just like the Walt Disney Family Museum. Same kind of
They
people
did
over there.
too. Yeah, same
Just
thing. Yeah,
lovely, lovely people. So I honestly, as much as I love seeing all the things and reading all the stories, the people really are why I go to D23 at all. Like if there weren't the wonderful people there, it wouldn't be, half as alive as what it is. So really wonderful to get to meet them. But let's move on. We got lots more to D23 to cover. So then in the afternoon, I think the evening, we went to Walt Disney 125 Years of Inspiration, which you and I really didn't know what we were in for this one, which happens a lot of D23 panels. Sometimes you get a little surprised. I was surprised to see that my friend Marco from the Fat Cat Swingers was playing. They were kind of like the instrumental hosts of this event, which was actually quite cool to see him up there. I've known Marco for a while. He's been a friend in Disneyland, more casual friend. So I actually used his song as in one of the chapters of my book, Who the Mirror Reflects. And then I credited him for that the character actually is listening to one of it because it's such a lovely song. So just a personal connection to Marco. So I was really excited to see him get up on stage, and they played a few numbers from Jungle Book, and then they played everybody on and off the stage. So that was quite fun for me. But one of the people that they did introduce and play on the stage was Joanna Miller, who was Walt Disney's granddaughter. Was there any story that she told that was particularly interesting for you there, Joshua?
Well, not anything specific, but her overarching theme, in fact, she said that at the end of it was that even though he was a major studio mogul, exec, visionary, whatever, he still managed to find time for his children and his grandchildren, which I found that was really endearing because when you're looking at the history of Walt himself, especially in those final years, and she was basically just alive for those final years. There was so much that that he had his hands in, and so many things that he was definitely doing, and yet he was able to go ahead and have a few vacations and have some downtime and everything, and made sure that he had time for his grandchildren. So, even a major important person as he was and everything, he actually knew the importance of connection and family and everything. And just like it wasn't just talk, it was something that he actually practiced. He wasn't like other studio executives who were, like Louis B. Mayer or something let's like said one thing but did something completely different. No, it was completely consistent with his values and what he valued out of life.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I loved that. She also said, thank you to all of us for keeping Walt present in the world, and it's going to make it a better place. So I thought that was very sweet for her to recognize us as a part of Walt's legacy. The surprise for us, I guess, was then all these other people that they pulled on stage who knew Walt personally. And of course, there was Bob Gurr, Floyd Norman, and Tania Norris. So very fun to see all of them pop up on stage. And of course, Bob Gurr dancing his way on stage, which is just so great. That man has so much life in him. But they each individually talked about what Walt meant to them and his legacy and all those kinds of things. And I love Floyd Norman. He said that he started his relationship with Walt when he was a kid, and he kept saying his signature everywhere. So he said, as a little kid, he said, someday I'm going to work for Walt Disney. He said it was a little bit of an audacious thing for a kiddo to say, but he said it was a dream, but dreams come true, and I'm proof of that, which definitely made me tear up. So keep dreaming big, kids. And Then Tania Norris, who of course made the Haunted Mansion wallpaper and did the interior design for Club 33 and whatnot. She said she was known for her research, but even then she looked high and low and couldn't find any spooky wallpaper. And that's why she created the wallpaper for the Haunted Mansion, because she needed something that was a little spookier. But regarding Walt, she said he was one of the most kind and considerate bosses, never said no. And he made her feel comfortable, and remembered that he made everyone feel like they were part of a team. Even though they all came from different worlds, they were all parts of Walt Disney. And that's what Walt did. He got people together from all over the world, which we were kind of doing at D23, which so that Kate did a lot of crying at D23. But and then, of course,
so
we have
Joshua. It's not for both criers.
But then, of course, we have Bob Gurr. He said lots of things, and he's always quite funny. And but he said that Walt, he said like, for the kids today that are growing up, which is, it's fun. He said Walt had a genuineness about him, a kind of genuineness that comes from the heart more than the head. And you just automatically loved him. But there was a lot of talk between him and Floyd Norman about being authentically who you are, because that's who Walt Disney was. He was truly an original, but he was himself. He wasn't a different person once the door closed. He was always just who he was. And so I loved that message that we got to hear from those people who knew Walt personally. So very special.
The one thing that, like Bob Gurr said, and he actually says it in Walt Man Behind the Myth, he also says it during that documentary from 2001, where he says that, Walt had an air about him that you just wanted to please this man.
Yeah.
And I think that everyone thought that. And it's just like, you would wonder, okay, why? What makes him special about that? Well, I think that, like there is a genuineness that he saw things in people that they didn't see inside of themselves. He could see that Blaine Gibson was a sculptor, even though he was in animation. He did this with all kinds of people. It's just like, I believe in your talents and abilities, even ones that you didn't even know that you had.
Yeah.
And then, and so I think that there's a genuineness there, and but more on like a philosophical level. Walt Disney, more than anybody else in the entire history of the 20th century, really had his hand. He had his hand on the pulse of America.
Yeah.
So, and really just the Western world in general. So, to please Walt Disney is to please the world in some aspects.
Yeah.
So, and I think that people think that that's what a lot of his success was about. And it was really cool also to see Tania Norris on there. I'm a huge Disney Women of Imagineering fan. I love all of them, and she's kind of like she was very. A lot of her commentary about Walt and Imagineering and everything is really focused on the enormous sophistication of the medium. How it was created for everyone, but really it was created for adults.
Yeah.
And how sophisticated her designs were and everything. And like you look at her and Glenna Von Kessel and Dorothy Redman, all those ladies who worked on New Orleans Square. It's just absolutely exquisite stuff. And to see her on stage and everything and doing that, and it was fun to hear her story. About it's just like, okay, well, the reason why I created the wallpaper is because there was no spooky wallpaper. So,
right.
So I had to do that. And then it turns out too, it's just like, this is because we always have to bring the mansion into at least 25% of our content is that,
True.
Yeah, that you can see, the wallpaper is the inspiration for the wainscoting, which is inspiration for this, which is inspiration for that. Again, it permeates the entire mansion, even though it was just one element that she created for that. So that was really cool to see her on stage, and just like it was just fun to geek out about this wonderfully sophisticated lady that was rediscovered by history by Tom K. Morris.
Yeah. It was just really special overall to hear their individual accounts of like what Walt meant to them and how they always say that, I can't remember exactly who said it, but they said that like if there was 300 people that encountered Walt, they would get 300 different versions of Walt. And I think that's why so many people struggle with kind of like nailing down who he was. Like they will say, no, he was this way, or no, he was this way. And like Tania said, Walt never said no to me. And the other two said, oh, he said no to me. you know, like, and that really is,
Yeah.
he was so many different people in one, and it really depended on who you were, the circumstance, what was going on. Like, he adapted in so many different ways. There was so many different sides of him, and that's why everybody fights all the time about what Walt would have wanted, because the reality is he surprised everybody all the time by what he wanted.
I think that he just met people where they were at.
Yeah.
It's just like he treated people as individuals. He wasn't just this icon that he is going to be this way for everyone all the time. No, he was certain ways for people and certain ways in another one. He was a complicated individual.
Yes.
That's what happens.
Truly an original in many, many ways, for many reasons. That being said, let's talk about where he lived a little bit. So we went to this wonderful presentation that was in the evening. So I'm not sure a lot of people who went over to the Honda Center got to see it. Full disclosure, I decided not to do the Honda Center partially because of finances this time around, but also because last time I was so disappointed to miss some of the panels that I really wanted to go to that were history focused, because I had to go to the Honda Center, by like 5 p.m. or whatever. So I spent my evenings, most of them, at the ACC, and I know you did too, Joshua. And so we went to this wonderful talk by the Walt Disney Family Museum called The Houses That Walt Built. And I'll just give you a brief touch on each one. I had to really pull myself back because I wanted to tell you all the things, but I will just give you a couple of small things about each of these houses that they talked about in this presentation, because there's some fabulous photos here that I had never even seen before of some of the interiors of the spaces. So the first house that they showed us was the Lyric Avenue home in LA. This is from December 1927 was when they built this one. But he built this after the success with Oswald. It was made from a Pacific Ready cut kit by him and Roy. So they built this house from a kit, and it was 12,000 pieces, which actually doesn't sound like that much considering it's a whole house,
That's less than an IKEA project.
I know, right? And there was very little customization to it. It was also a makeshift studio for the very first Mickey Mouse cartoons as well. So that's the Lyric Avenue home. And then he built Woking Way in Los Feliz in 1933. It actually took 10 weeks to build, which is crazy fast for a house if you've ever built a house. And they had the architect add maybe like 3 to 4 yards to every room of the house because they felt so cramped on Lyric Avenue. So we're just going to make this way bigger. So here's a picture of Walt and his family on the staircase of this home. Another picture is a little bit lower quality of the staircase, so you can see the full extent of it here. And I believe this is the dining room because it's got a dining room table, and the living room with this gigantic Christmas tree in it. So obviously during the holidays, but had these vaulted ceilings in the living room. The ceilings were actually done by the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts. They painted the ceilings in the home, so that's what it looks like today. And this is, you can kind of see a little piece of it here with Walt Disney leaning over the balcony. And then something that was really interesting about this is they talked about how Lillian Disney collected clocks. And so they showed some of them that are in the home. And you can see on that staircase there is a grandfather clock on the landing, and which is funny because it's in front of a door. So I'm not sure why it's in front of a door. And I don't even think they knew, but they thought it was interesting little detail. Then there's also another clock here that you can see kind of on the mantle behind Walt in that photograph that's a little cut off there. But again, we could go on forever with details for this. I have a whole lot more in my notes, but I'm trying to just give you just a taste of it. Then they went to Carolwood Drive in February of 1950. Basically, they moved here because I was like, why in the world would they move away from like that storybook mansion, right, Joshua? Like, that place was amazing.
Yeah.
That's the place that they had like the girls had their
Snow White Cottage in the back.
Yes, thank you. And the pool and everything else. They had so many things there. Like, why would they move away? Well, apparently Walt said he would miss the time of the girls, but he wanted a longer commute to work so he'd have time to think. Basically, he was living too close to work and did not have that time in the car, which was basically his only time he had to himself. And that's why they moved to Carolwood Drive, which honestly, I didn't know why he had made that move before. So that was really interesting.
Well, I don't know if it was in your notes, but they also said that in that particular neighborhood was also very popular for studio heads to go to. So that was part of it. He was just moving because he was part of that wonderful gang of like Louis B. Mayer and all those guys. So
it's at Carolwood Drive, of course, that he then builds his railroad. Picture of Walt there on the trestle. And another one here, you can see that barn that we had talked about previously, which of course you can visit still today. I also have some pictures of Lily's garden because we had mentioned her how much she loved flowers and everything. And so this is pictures of her yard, which I think is really wonderful. And it looks like, to me, those look like rhododendrons there in that giant bush. We need Kirk here to talk us about botanical things. But this is what the interior of the house looked like. And again, not all of the photos they showed us, just some of them here. And if you see pictures of Walt, they said to make sure everybody knew that this was after he had passed. So they put pictures of Walt up everywhere in the house. He wasn't one to have pictures of himself just everywhere all over his home. So just a warning there. But this is the staircase here. And then, of course, another one of Lily's clocks. Something that was really fun is that a lot of the art that's in the home was purchased from Walt Disney's animators because he wanted to support them as fine artists. So this one's by Al Dempster, and there's also over the fireplace is a Peter Ellenshaw painting. And something you'll notice that as we go through these photos, that there isn't a lot of like Disney in their home. Like there's not like Mickey Mouse figurines everywhere. There's no you really don't see anything from the studio here. And I think that was intentional because he left those at the office and then he wanted to come home and kind of have a break from all of that, which I could understand that. So
you are Mr. Disney, it's just you don't want to have an entire house full of yourself.
Yeah. The rest of the house is very like mid-century modern is how I would describe this. I don't know if you have other ways of wanting to describe it.
The whole design and everything reminds me of like the Stevens house in Bewitched. It just looks like a kind of like an idealized upscaled version of that. So
yes, I would agree. There was also portraits hanging in the house of the daughters. Sharon's was done by Herb Ryman and Diane's was done by Nasa McMeehan. So they were there. And then the guest room has this kind of like white and cranberry colored motif to it. And that was because Lillian would purchase cranberry glass from the one-of-a-kind shop in Disneyland that was in New Orleans Square. And then they would put it in this guest room, which I thought was quite fun. And then this one I thought was really interesting just from a historical perspective. This is Walt and Lillian Disney's room. And they had separate twin beds, which is you never think of Walt Disney sleeping in a twin size bed. I would think king size at least.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's not like it doesn't look terribly extravagant, which I think is always interesting because people are always like, oh, Walt Disney was so wealthy. And of course, to have a house that large in that area with what the acreage they had and everything. Yes, he had money by this point, but it wasn't like this looks like an opulent thing. It's like two twin beds in a fairly sparse room. So just a really interesting thing to see. And then the reason for that they slept in two beds, my understanding is that he would toss and turn and get up to look at scripts. And he was a very restless sleeper. And so they didn't sleep well in the same bed. That's what they said. This is what is known as, sorry, let me start that over. This is what is known as the garden room. So this is where they actually screened movies like Mary Poppins at home. Then they also had a soda shop as well. Then this is also like the outside patio. But now we have to go to the Smoke Tree Ranch home, which is the last one I'll show you guys, I promise. But they first had a house here in Smoke Tree Ranch that they then sold to fund Disneyland in 1954. And then they bought a second house in 1957. The Smoke Tree Ranch home was designed on the exterior by Carl Denny, and the interior design was done by Arthur Elrod. So you can see just a few shots of the interior of this. It had tile work throughout the home. Then this is what one of the rooms looked like. It had this really gorgeous wallpaper in it. And there's also the furniture as well, very mid-century in design. But something that was really interesting that they pointed out was Walt was very involved in lawn bowling at the ranch. So that was like his hobby when he went there. And then the kids also the grandkids that stayed at the house told a story of a Salvador Dali painting that they had to walk by in the hallway at night when it was dark, and they were absolutely terrified to do so. And I don't blame them, because this one's scary. Jump scare, guys. Sorry. This is it's kind of like, it reminds me a little bit of Stranger Things, if I had to give a vibe to it. Like,
right.
It's
yeah.
Stranger Things with like limbs going through pieces of things, and it's weird. It's all of Salvador Dali is a little different, but this one's kind of creepy.
Yeah, there's some of his that are macabre, and when like when we were hearing this story before they flashed it on the screen, I'm just like, they were just like, oh yeah, Salvador Dali scary. I'm like, really, the limp watches thing? Just like this is not scary. Oh my god, this is I can understand. I don't want that in my house.
Yeah, that's
I mean, it's cool to have a Salvador Dali inside of your hallway, like an original, but at the same time, like, no.
Well, this is not something you would expect Walt Disney to have in his home.
No, not at all. So
his vacation home with that. It's very different.
Yeah.
But so that was a really interesting thing to see. But that being said, are we ready to move on to day 2 there, Joshua?
Anything to get that image off the screen. That'll be good.
So day 2, you can see that we did a little bit of Disney bounding on this day. Jungle Cruise Disney boundings. Of course, we had to revisit the Walt Disney Family Museum model, because we were very, very interested in seeing more details about that, especially after having seen that talk about all the little details that were there. But then we went to see Floating Mountains, a conversation with Joe Rohde, which definitely one of the highlights for me. I know for you too, Joshua, in this. I have some quotes and stuff from him that I want to kind of like talk about, but do you want to mention some of the things that kind of stood out to you first?
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing that was most impressive to me is, like, even before we went into the panel, I said that it's like, I really hope that this is something where he doesn't talk about individual projects. He did talk about them in on the periphery, but I really, based off of a lot of videos that I've seen of him over the years, he is his most impressive when he's talking about things in the abstract.
Yes.
And Distory watchers may or may not know this about Kate, or especially me, but we are both when we're not studying Disney history, we're often talking about human dynamics.
Yeah.
And we're also talking about like structures and being able to relate to people and everything else. And basically that was a lot of his talk on here. Floating Mountains is actually a book that is one of the books I'm most excited about Disney coming out with in a very, very long time, mostly because he is focusing on what it's like to be creative in a collaborative team.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that. And that was something that was really fascinating. It's also really timely, because there's lots of projects now that me and Kate are working on all the time. And we're used to working by ourselves and not having anyone questioning what we're doing. And
I'm still learning to adjust to that. I'm not great at that.
Yes. So sorry, that was a little too emphatic. No, I'm learning too.
We're working on it.
It's a learning experience for both of us. It's a little bit painful, but it's a good pain. It's a good pain. It's like working out. It's an awesome thing. It's an awesome muscle. No, we have a lot of fun.
So there's a couple of takeaways that I took voracious notes during this, because I wanted all the things. Give me all the information from Joe Rohde. But one of the things he said was to have a Marty Sklar approach to leadership, where you would connect day to day and keep a flat communication system. And that means that info would be relatively unfiltered, because info itself is raw material. So Marty didn't want to make a need-to-know community, because that limited creativity. Marty would walk around and ask what is happening, and that keeps info flat and level and moving, so everyone feels seen and understood and recognized, and then people are more invested, which I think is brilliant and absolutely the way that it should be done in Imagineering. Another couple of just quotes that I pulled from him. He said, "A thematic system allows you tremendous freedom for creativity," meaning he went into detail about a lot of these things, but, staying within a theme, like if you're talking Animal Kingdom, how he gives his example of like, maybe you can describe this better than me.
I can, because I've
Okay.
actually seen this many times over. It's genius. I love this example, and it was so cool the way that he did it this time, because I've seen him do it like two or three times now.
Yeah.
It's what I call it's his doorknob analogy. So he did this because he used to be a school teacher before he was Imagineering. It was so fun to actually see him dredge up that part of him before it was now long since past. So everyone knows, and he was able to get everybody to recite. Apparently, everyone in that panel were devotees of the cult of the earring, whatever. For Joe Rohde, but everyone knows that the entire theme of Animal Kingdom is the intrinsic value of nature. If you're going to do something nature, this is, and really what he's talking about is it informs all of your decision making all the way down to the most basic of levels. So he starts off by saying, it's just like, okay, intrinsic value of nature. Is it going to have more buildings? Is it going to have more plants? Everyone in the entire audience says it's going to have more plants. Is it going to be more organic, or is it going to be something that's geometric? And then it's just like, it's going to be organic. Okay, so if you're looking at a door, is the door going to be made of steel, or is it going to be made of wood? It's going to be made, everyone said, of course it's going to be wood. The doorknob on that, is it going to be shiny, or is it going to have a burnished metal look? Is it going to be weathered? It's going to be weathered. Is it going to, the pattern that is on the doorknob, is it going to be something that is going to be mechanical, or is it going to be something that's going to have an ornate organic pattern on there? Everyone said the ornate or organic panel on there, and that's how that works, and that's what real theme is about. Theme is not about plot. It's not about you can put a story, you can have a storyline that conveys theme, but it's not the theme itself.
Yeah.
It's just like, the theme of Animal Kingdom is not animals. The theme of Animal Kingdom is not the Lion King. The theme of it is the intrinsic value of nature.
Right.
So
exactly
it means that it's something that's permanent. It's something that, like has no questioning. This is a higher value, is that nature is a higher value.
And I love that he's talking about with a thematic system allows for tremendous freedom and creativity, because within that system now, if you know that this is the goal that we want to have, the intrinsic value of nature, and then everything kind of falls into place after that. And so then you don't have to micromanage somebody about, exactly what this doorknob should look like, because they will already in their minds be formulating what it should look like based on that goal of that theme. So really fascinating to hear him kind of like think through that process and explain it. He also said you have to be willing to get in a little bit of trouble, not as a rebel, but to help a system that otherwise will become more rigid. And he talked about that in terms of like them saying, no, we don't want to do like a zoo at Disney. Like, we're not doing that. And so, of course, he had the famous, he brought a tiger into the meeting and, scared everybody and made people think that, okay, well, animals can be exciting. And like, that's how he kind of like pushed them out of their comfort zone, so to speak, into something that's new, because change is so important in that way. But he also said your creative capacity is your social capacity to get together with other people, which I think is really important for us to remember, that we need other people in order to be creative. We really cannot create in a vacuum by ourselves. Like you can sit down and draw and stuff, but all of the things that you're doing were influenced by somebody else at some point. So I thought that was great. And then he also did kind of like a Q&A at the end, a very brief one. And one of these questions really stuck with me and that I'm still thinking about now. He said, the question was, when do you stop refining an idea or project? And he said, all art gets done because someone stops. He said, like, if I wasn't in love with my own work, is this enough for someone to get it? Is it both emotionally and cognitively effective? And then it's dangerous to take it any farther than that. So, I know, Joshua, you and I have talked a little bit about, we're both kind of perfectionists and we want to keep finessing things and making things look perfect all the time. And this really kind of like flies in the face of that a little bit, because it's like, well, if you aren't in love with your own work, like you have to take a step back from it and be like, this isn't my baby. This is something, is it going to communicate what it needs to, both emotionally and cognitively, to the people that need it? And then that's where you stop. And I think we are so tempted to go beyond that,
Yeah, because we have a perfect perception of exactly what XYZ project needs to be at the end of it.
Yeah.
Where we've exhausted every single detail, every single aspect of it, and want to make sure that everything is exactly perfect and right in every conceivable way. And yeah, that was something that, like that. There are certain things in certain presentations, or when you're listening to other people of great amounts of wisdom and knowledge, like Joe has, that like stay with you for a long while. That reminds me of like when you're. It's something that I've been meditating on for like ever since we left it. Because there's a lot of real interesting thoughts that you can get from panels like this, like that are not just announcements of new things, that you can actually get some wisdom from these truly great people. It reminded me of something that Eddie Sato once told me about Herbie Ryman, because here he is, like Eddie Sato, he's Mr. Main Street, he's very ornate about everything, and he's making sure that he's getting every single Victorian detail perfectly done. And then Herb Ryman comes in with his sassy attitude about everything, and he says, Eddie, what is that for? Who are you doing that for? And and of course he's doing it for himself.
Right.
He's just like, no, you don't need to do that. You need to convey the ornateness, like right here and right here. Everyone gets it. That will be for the craftsmen that come later after this. But your job is just to get down the concept, so that everyone understands it, and you're communicating it effectively, which is what Joe was talking about in there. So that dovetails with both of those. So.
Yeah. I mean, if you're on your own time, you want to make an ornate sketch for whatever, just for your own self, you can. But if it's for this specific project like Main Street or whatever, you have to do the amount you need to do to communicate it effectively what you need. So I just thought that was really interesting. We could go on and on about Joe Rohde for hours because we love him, but I think
we're both really holding back because I've got like a large stack of notes right here. I'm just saying, no, we can't make this a 3-hour thing. Please do not make this a 3-hour thing.
No. So we're going to move on a little bit, but I would highlight, I love that he said his book Floating Mountains was basically like his Instagram in a book form. And I love Joe Rohde's Instagram. If you haven't followed him on there, he tells all kinds of great stories and thinks deeply about design and history and culture. And so a great place to go if you want a little bit more Joe Rohde and haven't gotten his book yet. But let's move on. Other things we did on day 2 is we went to go to the Heritage Auction just to kind of see the items that were on display, not because we were going to bid. I don't think I would have won anything. $20 and I don't have it yet. But but they did have some things that were on display from California Adventures Tower of Terror, which was fun because we just did that long series in the past year. And then this is kind of what the whole display looked like that was next to it. So we had one of the tables and then one of those lamps that is a kind of a replica of the ones that were from the Fox Theater in Seattle that we talked about. The real ones are in Walt Disney World, but then this is not a real one. It's a fake one, but that is the one that was used in the attraction. And then there's, of course, a chair there as well that was included in it. So this is what they look like up close. There's the lamp and the chair. And then we saw some Haunted Mansion things, which is actually quite cool. So this is from, we've talked about the changing portraits a lot here, and this is one of Mark Davis's. This is Medusa, and we always talked about how they had 6 slide transitions. Well, this is like one of those original ones before they digitized it, and this one is from Disneyland. I think it's at 1970 on that, but really interesting to see this up close.
It's never so tiny. That's what I still can't get over. It's like I don't know, 5 by 7. And I'm being generous here, 5 by 7, to say, like, because you look at it on the auction, and of course it's got exquisite detail and everything for it because it's a slide, so it's a photochemical process and everything. It's not digital, but yeah, it was really cool to see that because you're looking at the auction and just like, oh my gosh, this must be a big thing. It's just like, no, it's like this big. It's like this big. That's about it.
It's so
it's just
small.
like that was so cool though. Yeah, yeah, very and it has a lily at the bottom of it, which is an old Technicolor term for a color scheme on there. And I did play with it on the actual auction website, and everything came out perfectly because of that. So that was good.
next to it, they had the sarcophagus for the mummy in the graveyard scene at the Haunted Mansion as well, which was just really cool to see after we've studied so the Egyptomania of the Victorian age on Distory in the past. So really fun to see that on display as well. And we're not going to show everything that was in this. We're just pulling a couple pieces that we thought were interesting. I know that there's a lot of people that are big fans of Muppets. There was a lot of Muppet stuff everywhere in the auction and the archives and everything. So I just thought I'd show Miss Piggy here from the Muppets. Oh, and then they had some of the benches from Big Thunder Mountain Railroad in Walt Disney World. And it's cool because they turned one of them into like a little couch. So you could have it in your room and actually use it if you wanted to. Anyway, the other thing that they had was the archives like uncrated event where they did have quite a few things there, but I'm just going to point out some of the ones that were most interesting to us as historians. It was very kind of 90s heavy in general. Overall, everywhere in D23 this year was very 90s heavy, even the merch and everything.
Late 90s. Late
90s. Yeah, now I'm starting to feel old. But they did have Mary Poppins' carpet bag from the original film from the 60s, so that was really fun to see that. And then they had the arc from the Great Movie Ride from, tell me what scene that is. I'm trying to remember. You worked that ride, so you know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's exactly so. It's the Ark of the Covenant from the Great Movie Ride and the Well of Souls scene that was in there. That was the one prop that we knew never to touch. Thank God we're both still alive right now because we did not touch it. So.
Bad things happen.
That's one that they don't even need to put the tag on there. If anybody knows about the history of the Ark of the Covenant, even if it's a replica, you don't touch them.
Just don't touch it. Yes, in general.
Yeah, just don't touch
it. They also had some props from Captain EO, so that was pretty cool to see those. And then you had another one as well. Do you want to tell them about that one?
Yeah, I think that you're going to put up there Vincent, which is from the Black Hole. Black Hole is, like it's one of those movies, like, like it's not a terribly good movie, but it is an extraordinarily fascinating movie with its production and production design and everything. So it was so cool to actually see Vincent there. Vincent, which was voiced by Ronnie McDowell, and he had like a lot of little philosophy sayings on there and everything. So it was really, really cool to actually see the Vincent from the Black Hole, which came out in 1979, which contrary to popular belief was not in any way, shape, or form a response to Star Wars. That was actually in production 2 or 3 years well before Star Wars even existed. They did light a fire under them to get the whole entire picture completed after Star Wars came out, but it was not that. But yeah, so the Black Hole is like one of those really, really fascinating things just from a historical perspective. Again, really hard movie to sit through, but amazing production design. Everything is actually one of the very few times where Harrison and Peter Ellenshaw, the father and son team, actually worked together. They have a lot of matte paintings that they did at the same exact time. Just really incredible stuff on there. So I should really stop myself, otherwise I'm going to really bore Kate into the ground.
I'm in a black hole now.
Right. Kate is not really into space, and that's just to put it lightly, people. I am trying to get through this as fast as I possibly can before she actually gives me a laser eyes right now to stop.
I'm sure that there's a lot of people that appreciated that. To see that. Okay.
You're just not one of them, and that's okay.
No. But something I did appreciate is now on to day 3. So day 3, we saw these wonderful handprints of the 9 old men. Frank Thomas and Mark Davis and Ollie Johnston and a whole bunch of them were there, which was quite fun. We also went to edutainment from Walt Disney Animation Studios. And so this was basically just highlighting different things that the studios made over the years that taught something, right? It was educational things. But of course they did it in edutainment, a fun way. And so there was quite a few here. They talked a lot about the Jiminy Cricket ones where they teach you, don't be a fool and all those kinds of things. This one is from Adventures in Music Melody from 1953. I just pulled a sample of these because it was an hour-long presentation, so I don't want to do all those things. But they did have also this one from Man on the Moon, which some are into interesting concepts there. And I like this one too, Donald in Math Magic Land, as I remember watching that when I was in school back in the day when they'd pull out the old wheeled like projector that had the film reels on it, and they would put it on and go you'd watching Donald in Math Magic Land. Those kids don't know what they're missing out on with that experience. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, exactly. That really should be like continuous. Like that, there's nothing, because it's about math and it's about like how it relates to things. And like there's nothing that's like educationally, there's nothing that's really dated about that film.
Right.
It has a gorgeous score from Buddy Baker that's associated with it. A lot of like real powerhouse Disney legends actually worked on that short. John Hench was working on that short as well, and it's also narrated by Paul Freeds, with as Argosto. So that's pretty incredible as well. And like as a younger child and everything, of course, I was much more of a creative person than anything else. So it was really cool, to watch. It's just like, oh no, math is in everything. Math is in creativity. And I'm constantly, using the calculator app to trying to figure out exactly like what percentages I need to make for certain angles on different design work that I have to do. And it's all right there. And like the wonderful quote that ends it where Galileo says mathematics is the alphabet with which God has created the universe. So that's also enormously meaningful and everything. It's just like, they should definitely show that is still in schools. And actually, as part of my E82 project, it's part of my Epcot chronology, because I look at Donald in Math Magic Land as the embryo of Epcot Center. And I have a whole write-up on there and everything, so that'll be in the links once we finish this show and everything, because you can actually see a 2K upscaled version of that, and there's a whole intro that I wrote for it, and some concept art and everything for that too. So
that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
This almost made me like math. That's what I have to say about that.
There you go. Yeah.
As close as I've ever been to enjoying math was during this. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about this presentation in particular? I know that they had a really cool one about Jiminy Cricket teaching how to ride a bicycle and stuff too. There was a lot of really cool things in it.
Yeah, there was a couple things that I forgot on there. Of course, I knew that they were going to be covering the what is now termed as the Disney Science Factual series, which is also the Tomorrowland series of things, which is Man in Space, Tomorrow the Moon and Mars and Beyond. But they also had some stuff from Magic Highways, and they also had the special which I showed Kate recently, which was the Eyes in Outer Space, which is all about satellites and weather control.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I really liked on there is they actually touched on some of the wartime efforts. So they had a couple of things on there. So they had Reason and Emotion, which was on there, which was about like how to, at the time it was, the message was to not allow yourself to be persuaded by propaganda, but it also was a marvelous way of how the brain actually works, and how you have your reasonable side and you have your emotional side, and they have some rather comical ways of looking at that, where they have the guy that looks at a girl and checks her out, and then he says something inappropriate to her, and because emotions run away with him, and then she has a similar problem with hers. But the other one that they talked about, and I completely forgot about this, was Defense Against Invasion, which you might think was about, which was done in the wartime, but it was actually about germs and being able to be immunized.
Yeah.
And they had these really cute little red blood cells that were like the metaphor that went all the way through it. And it's like these absolutely adorable little creatures. They kind of look like, like the 1997 Flubber, only they were red instead of green.
Right.
And you can see them like they're fighting and everything. It's so hysterical. I'm like, I forgot how cute this thing was. So it's great. Yeah.
I also love the one that's Pluto teaching you how to recycle your cooking grease. So you could save all of the extra fat from when you make bacon and sausage and whatnot, and then you would take it to like the grease like recycling area. That's part of the wartime effort. I was like, things that we forgot that people did back then, really interesting. Anyway, we should move on from this. This was a really interesting presentation just to see the concept art and kind of be reminded of some of these things in edutainment. But Then we did stop by and see the Walt's Barn display with the Combine car from the Santa Fe and Disneyland Railroad. Had a really wonderful conversation with, I believe it's John, who was sitting there, and just really, really lovely human. Had some very encouraging things to say, because apparently he does also watch my content. But it was really wonderful to hear how they lovingly restored this car, even to the details of replicating the stenciling that was on the inside with the glass that's up on the top. And you mentioned that it kind of looks like seats from like a school bus, was what it looks like on the inside.
They look exactly like seats from a school bus, like the ones that I was on when I was young, because I don't know, that I don't think it's that I'm that old. I just think that the vehicles are that old now. So,
well, they did, build this in a time. They built it from scratch, so it makes sense. All this, the original railroad, they really did make from scratch, and then later they ended up buying trains for the parks that were, from that were pre-made in some way or another. But all these original cars,
custom made,
yes, custom made. Thank you. They were originally made just for Disneyland, and so it would make sense that we need seats. Let's pull them from school bus seats. It's not like they invented everything. They just used what they had. So that being said, then I think one of the highlights of this day and of D23, probably for you and me both, I don't want to speak for you, but there was a Whole New World of Alan Menken concert that was at the end, which was such an incredible way to end this. And I'm just going to go through a couple of the things that I pulled from it, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts about this, Joshua. So he did say that he showed this kind of picture of what his studio looked like while he was composing. If you don't know who Alan Menken is, basically he composed most of the music in Disney films from the 90s on. So a lot of the major ones: Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, Enchanted, Tangled, the list goes on and on and on. It's very, very long. So that's who this is with. And he also showed his trophies that he had in his office as well. But he said that they moved to rural Pennsylvania, and he had a house with his wife Janice and his new daughter Anna. Back when the world was kind of a hard place, because there's a lot of awful things going on, like the rise of AIDS at the time. And so he said they escaped into the Disney classics, which had just come out on VHS. So things like even you and I probably had, Joshua, growing up, like the little clamshell, they had with Cinderella and Snow White, all the things that they released back then. And he said they discovered Robin Hood. That was a big one for me. They discovered the magic of these films, and he says it was like the one safe place in the world. He says, this is where I can go that is safe. And so he's isolated with his little family watching these Disney movies. And after that, he teamed up with Howard Ashman for The Little Mermaid. And they were going to make, he said, I'm just going to say a couple of fun facts he kind of threw in here. He said they were going to make Sebastian a stuffy English crab, but Howard had the idea of making him Caribbean instead. They won awards for The Little Mermaid, Best Original Score, Alan Menken did, and then a Best Original Song for Under the Sea. After that, that's when Howard told Alan he had HIV and was very sick. And Howard said, I'm so glad we won because I know that you're taken care of, which is very sweet and sad at the same time. But after that, they did work on Aladdin until, Howard was too sick to go on. But when they were making A Friend in Me, the Wahaha section from Aladdin was just Alan imitating a trumpet. It was never actually meant to be part of the lyrics of the song, but it somehow made it in there anyway. And then he completed Aladdin with his new lyricist, Tim Rice, after Howard passed away. Alan said he had an anxious flight to London and was not sure how the new partnership would go after having lost Howard. But the very first song they created was A Whole New World. And Alan, he really was in a whole new world with a new chapter of his life at the time after losing his creative partner. So I think that was put that song in a new context for me personally, having heard that story. And then he said, life rarely follows a clear path. Ideas die, and we lose people along the way. But love and passion remain a constant. Follow your heart, trust your gut, and always move forward, is what he said. What from this concert was a takeaway for you there, Joshua?
Well, I have been an enormous fan of Alan Menken's work for a long time. Actually, for a brief time in 2005, I was working at the Grand Floridian, and I actually saw this man come up very familiar at the desk, and he was trying to get it so that his masseuse could come inside of his room. And that was Alan Menken. And I looked down at the screen when somebody else was doing this. It's just like, that's Alan Menken. And of course, I'm dealing with college kids and everything, and they don't care about the behind the scenes stuff. I'm like he wrote everything. Like this is
literally everything.
Like,
yes.
and I can't even remember, but I did talk to him for a second. Just like I really love your work and everything. Just like I probably said the same cliche thing that everyone says to him that you but yeah, I really loved the concert. I knew, of course, it was with Menken, it was going to be great, but I'm like, the way that it was structured was awesome. He really kept the pace going with it. There was an intermission where Jodie Benson comes out and she talks about it. Yeah. And I've been fortunate enough because I worked at Tower. I got to meet her for a brief second too. But
this is just Joshua's name dropping portion of the podcast.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm cringing at myself right now. Oh, well, this is what it is. You work at the Hollywood Tower Hotel. That's what happens. But in any case, there was a couple of moments in there that really, like kind of got me. It's just like, like we all know and we're sort of almost comfortable with, however sad it is and everything, that Howard Ashman left us far too early. And really, he was like, it wasn't just that he was a lyricist. He was really guiding the return of Walt Disney Animation and the Walt Disney Company in general.
Yeah.
And he really, like he was the one who was so instrumental, and we're like, he was doing the thing, in Lion King, although he wasn't ever involved in that, like it's like he was the Mufasa in the clouds that he was saying, remember who you are,
right.
To all of the Walt Disney Studio when it was at the darkest point in its entire history.
Right.
His darkest point was not when Walt left it, although that was very dark as well because he had 20 years of projects there. No, when the 20 years of projects actually end in the 80s, that's the truly darkest time period of the company. And really, like you can definitely say, there's a couple people in that time period, Roy Disney, Michael Eisner, Frank Wells. And then you have Howard Ashman that's right there. That's also like at the very core of it, telling it or reminding Disney of who it was.
Yeah.
The part that was really interesting to me is that when Alan says, it's just like, I really wish that he could be here to accept his Legends Award.
Right. Yeah.
And that really kind of struck me because it's just like, you think about this alternate reality where he's went on to write so many things. And my God, with his skills and everything, like he would probably cringe at it, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that he could have become the CEO of the company. He could have been the head of Walt Disney Animation because his talents were limitless. So,
yeah. It was very emotional concerts because you can tell how much he loved his creative partner and friend and how much of a loss it was to lose him. And he played a few songs specifically written for Howard that were very moving, and even wrote one that was kind of unexpected that was from Home on the Range, which I think I've seen that movie once. But there was like a really like, will the sun ever shine again?
That's the watch count for me too. Sorry, Alan. But...
I know, like, will the sun ever shine again? He wrote in response during that time after 9/11, when the world was like wondering what's going to happen, and it's a very scary place. And I really think that a lot of the music that he's created, has resonated with us so much just because it really does touch this like human part of us of like, the I want songs and the longing, and think of, gosh, like, from Hercules to Hunchback of Notre Dame, like, some of those songs that are like the ones that are in Happily Ever After that we all just kind of like belt out because they mean so much to us, and he composed those things. And
he composed like half of those shows, like all those things that like you would cynically call them clip shows. He did that. So yeah,
Yeah.
the other thing that I thought that was like a really fun thing, and it's a really, kind of, it's funny, which is good because I need that because I'll cry again, is that when he was talking about them doing, because they had it was in pre-production for a long while, was Enchanted, and they needed to find somebody who could parody Alan Menken, and
Yeah.
Alan Menken himself said, "I can parody myself," and so,
That was
and then
funny.
meanwhile he comes up with things like, like Happy Working Song, which, like, you could look at it, there's a certain amount of him jabbing himself and jabbing Disney in that, but also there's a lot of elements of that, just like no, this is a very loving tribute to the company. It's playfully mocking. It's kind of like the thing that, like guys rarely give each other compliments. Compliments are always wrapped inside of a criticism. It's kind of like that kind of dynamic for Enchanted. It's just like you're poking fun, but you also know how important it really is.
Yeah. It was, I really loved that he also talked about how he won an award at the same time he was getting an award for Little Mermaid. He also won an award for Worst Song of the Year. He got a Razzies for Worst Song of the Year for Newsies. And
Yeah.
then he later, many years later, he was adapting Newsies for kind of just like high schools and community theater to be able to do it with a license rather than just kind of on rogue on their own. And that ended up going to Broadway and then winning a whole bunch of awards there. So it came full circle in the end, something he thought that was, a career low right alongside career high, right? And it actually then came back around to being something that was he could be very proud of. But he also said a lot of his career lows were accompanied with really like high highs, and low lows were like right next to each other all the time. And just made me think about how often that does happen, that there's some really beautiful, wonderful things that are happening, and they happen alongside some really sad, hard things to go through as well. And how it's always kind of a balance of both in life. It's never one or the other. And so a
Yeah.
good thing for us to keep in mind that even if you get a Razzie for Worst Song of the Year, eventually it might turn into a Broadway show that wins a whole bunch of awards, Tony Awards. So, like, don't give up just because something doesn't go quite as you'd planned. I think we should move on because we've been talking about Alan Menken for a while, but needless to say, beautiful way of ending D23. Really emotional, wonderful thing to hear. But one of the things that Alan Menken said was he said, people often come up to him and say, you wrote the soundtrack of my childhood. And he thought it was kind of strange as like some sort of like collective consciousness that makes everybody say the same thing. And, what was so funny, just as a more like personal note for me, is that I've kind of experienced something very similar to this at this D23, is that I had a lot of people come up to me and say the exact same words to me about, like how I was inspiring or encouraging or, made them love Disney again and all this stuff. And it was so interesting because to hear that quote at the end of it, I was like, yeah, it's like this almost like everybody has the exact same thing that they think about this. And then would say it to me, and it was very overwhelming. But I wanted to say on a personal note, thank you to everybody who chose to come up and say those things, who wanted, to take pictures and say such sweet, kind words to me. It's been a really hard season for me recently. I have a lot of professional blows that happened right before D23 that made it me start to question. I started looking into other careers, like what else could I do to earn money, because this is really exhausting and I've been doing it for a long time. And I love what I do. I love Disney history. It's my passion. I believe it's what I was put on this earth to do. It was doing this. But sometimes
it was. I've had talks with him. It's what you're supposed to do. So.
But I think that having that reminder from all of those wonderful people, and also some really unexpected professional things that happened at D23. It's overwhelming, but really I'm very, very thankful for that experience. I think that was the most impactful thing for me at D23 was all of you guys who came in and told me that what I do matters, because sometimes when you create like this, it's a little bit like putting things out into the void. And like sometimes I hear comments back from you guys and I love that. But a lot of times it's like you guys maybe enjoy something or not. I don't know. And then, you just move on with your life as you should. Like, this is just for you guys to enjoy. but I don't always know if it's something people like or not. So it was just, anyway, all that to say, it was really wonderful to hear from you guys. And I know even Joshua had that too, where people like, there was one guy that was so funny because he was just like, he recognized me first and he's like, I love your content. And then he's like, oh, but you're that E82 guy. He's like, I give you likes and comments, but I give you money.
Yes.
It's like, that's good. That was quite funny.
Yeah, it was so funny. It's just like, loved that and everything, because there was some of that, because like I've been in the shadows, even in my own stuff, not just on Distory, but I'm in the shadows of my own projects, let alone Kate and Kirk's. And it's that so
trying to pull them out of it.
So there was,
it's a long process.
Exactly. Yes. It's a very long process. It's like pulling teeth, and the other thing that I was noticing about that is just like, it was so wonderful that to see so many people really appreciate Kate. And I really am trying very hard right now, because I could go, the Waterworks can actually go with that, but she really, I love the fact that I can imagine, like, if anybody else was with her, or, like, you have some person who's a celebrity in certain factors and everything, that it could be somewhat, groaning or something, and I was just like, okay, yes, another person or everything. But like, I was, every single time that she was seeing somebody, and just like, I was just so impressed, and just like, really just like basking in the glow of in the sideways glow of how much people were saying to her, because I say these things to her all the time, and like, and Kurt does too, but we're kind of in this together, and we don't. And, it's just like, so, like, she could say wonderful things to me, and it doesn't, like, but it really, it helps when you have like 25 people a day to come up and tell you how much their work has meant to you.
It's
and
something.
and every single time, it's just like, I was looking at him, just like, because I know that she's been going through a lot of struggles lately, and I've been trying to be as supportive as I can about that. But it was so great to see all these people do that, and I also say, in a playful way, it's just like, I'm like, keep going. She'll eventually get the message. Come on. I want more and more evidence. I want, like, not in a Kylo Ren more way, but kind of close to that. But it was just really, really wonderful to see that with her, and to be on the sidelines of that experience. So,
Thank you for that. Apparently, this is the episode where we cry of Distory Nite Shift.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But D23 will do that to you, I think, every time. But thank you.
Yeah.
That was very kind of you to say. The other thing that I wanted to mention that was kind of special for me was I recently got connected to Disney Hits on Sirius XM Radio, and I got to visit them at D23 and say hi to DJ Ennis, and who I'd previously been connected to, and I got to do a dedication to my children, which some people then have like reached out to me and say like, hey, I heard you on the radio. It's like, oh yeah, my voice was completely shot that day, but it was fun to get to visit the booth and meet everybody in person. And I will say that stay tuned, because I already recorded a Be Our Guest for the Day segment for Disney Hits on Sirius XM Radio, and you'll get to hear some Disney stories accompanied with some of my very favorite Disney songs. So that's coming up pretty soon, so stay tuned for that. But I also have this great picture of Joshua too, next to the new Epcot album in this. And so I'm trying to get him out there more. So here is a picture of Joshua, who visited the booth as well. So that's a lot of the things that we found while we were at D23, just a little sampling of some of the history that we thought would be interesting for you guys. But I know that a lot of you have been asking about the things that were announced at the Experiences Showcase and some of the projects that Imagineering has going on. So we're going to dig into that a little bit. Now, full disclosure, Joshua and I took a little side quest during the evening of that showcase of the parks panel, the parks Disney Experiences Showcase, mainly because, like, again, I didn't want to pay to go to that because I just didn't have the money. But I also, if you don't know, many people don't know this, Kate is a huge fan of Noah Khan, who's a music artist. Like, massive fan of NoahCon, and he happened to be playing at the Rose Bowl, and I was like, hey, I don't want to drive to Pasadena by myself. Josh, do you want to go with me? So we as Disney historians took an evening off from the Disney history and went to the Rose Bowl and went to see NoahCon, which was a fabulous concert. I had the time of my life. It was really great. And all that to say, we listened to the panel. We watched the panel after that, because it was recorded live, right? And so the way we did it, because we had that long drive back to Anaheim, is we basically just fast forwarded through the parts that weren't the announcements. So that gave us a little bit of a skewed perspective about, because a lot of people are saying this could have been an email. It was a lot of waste of time. It was really frustrating that there wasn't more. And I didn't have that feeling. I don't know about you, Joshua, but I was like, this was great because we only watched it in 20 minutes. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was the thing. It's just first of all, the NoahCon concert was really, really awesome. I didn't know about him until me and Kate became friends, and then we were listening to it together for many months now, and it was so cool to actually see that concert and everything.
And listen to music. Yeah, and stuff. That's that. So yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's what we do. Is sometimes we're collaborating. We'll do that over Zoom, and then we'll just share music and everything. It's a fun thing.
Yeah.
But it was really fun to see that, and it was just like I needed to hear a nearly 8-minute version of Porch Light, because this should be no shock to anybody who listens to my compilations. But when you have something like Horizons, which was a 15-minute experience, and I make it into an hour and a half long album, that should come as no shock to me. I'm like, I really love Porch Light, but it's only 4 minutes long. Can we make it double? That would be great. And they did. So it was awesome. And in addition to everything else, and a massive fireworks display at the end of that too. I was expecting a little bit of fireworks, but not that much. It was really, really good. So we got a nighttime spectacular, even when we were trying for. So
what was so funny is that I when I went to Disneyland the next day, after D23 ended, and it's one of my friends who's also a Disney creator who was there, and he's just he knows that I love NoahCon. He was NoahCon, and he was there too, and I hadn't known that he was there. I was like, yeah, and we're shouting our favorite songs that he played and everything. And then I found out a few of my other Disney friends went as well, and I was like, oh, we were just all there, which was really funny because it happened the same night as this experience showcase. Anyway, enough about NoahCon. I could go on that about a long time.
But getting back to the presentation, because we did hear a lot of complaints from people that there was a lot of fluff in there.
Yeah,
and so that's the reason why, if me and Kate are a little less perturbed about this, is because we experienced it in an entirely different way. It's just we're because the concert was out late. We had to be into the event the next day early, and we were going to have friends that were wanting to have our opinions on things, which we know nothing about at the time. So we're literally fast forwarding through the entire. We're fast forwarding through the thing, and just so that it's just there were times when maybe I would go ahead and I would fast forward through. It's just no, you've missed 3 seconds, and then she'll make me pull back, and then I had to go ahead and start up again. So we watched all of the essential stuff. We just didn't watch any of the musical numbers. That's the only thing that we didn't watch, and it was over for us in 25 minutes, which was very good. It reminded me of something like it with for a long while, the tradition with Steven Spielberg and George Lucas is whenever their films would come out, they would go to a vacation spot completely removed from society.
Yeah.
It's just so that way they didn't have to face the tension of the box office returns and everything. So, I won't say that me and Kate will never go to Horizons experience, but it's also ironic that, the one that we didn't watch live or what participated with live ended up having a lot of really, really good announcements for it. So maybe it's a good thing that your two Disney historians here don't watch it at all for live, and everyone will benefit from that, including us. So there you go. So,
Okay, but let's dig into some of the things they did announce, and a lot of this has already kind of been talked to death on the internet in the last couple of days, so we're just going to kind of give you our take on some of what's going on here. And so Let's start with Tropical Americas, which we did go to a little brief kind of Imagineering talk with Joe Rohde about kind of what's going on there, including one of the experts that they pulled in on Mayan culture to hear about what they're building, what they're doing. And he even talked about the specific temples that they used as the influence for Indiana Jones and whatnot, which I thought was honestly my 2 cents about that was so encouraging to see how much history and how much research they're doing to create that area. I don't know what you've thought about that, but I was so impressed that it felt like a return to a previous form of Imagineering where they really cared about the details, the history, and getting it right, and also making it compelling on multiple levels, which I would expect nothing less from Joe Rohde, quite honestly,
Yeah. It's interesting, too, that I think that it will be consistent with the rest of Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
There was a lot of concern that I had and a lot of other people had about it. I'm still somewhat, jaded about the fact that there are no more extinct animals inside of the park. So that its entire mission about having animals real, imagined, and extinct are gone. But at the same time, they say the tropical Americas, it does fall in line with the whole entire thing where they have Africa and they have Asia. So this is an extension of that. The other thing that I thought was kind of interesting about it is that I've heard reports beforehand, and this is during the dreaded Bob Chapek dark days of Imagineering, is that it was going to be something that was going to be done on the cheap. And it looks like that is definitely not the case now. So we can see just from the way that they've been sculpting things and everything, this is true Imagineering quality, Joe Rohde signature quality that they're giving to this entire land. So I think that that's very encouraging with that project.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, as in that talk with a Mayan expert, they talked a lot about bees and the bees as an important part of their culture and how pieces of the working with beehives and whatnot, all of that had been kind of dying out and they're trying to revive it. So it really seems like there are ways that they're seeking out animals in other ways to pull it into this part of the land. So we're not losing animals entirely from the storyline, which I thought was really great. So we do have the concept art here for the Encanto. Let's start with the Encanto house and whatnot. And this seemed like a really cute ride with the little ride vehicles made of different pieces of furniture and everything. I don't know. What are your thoughts about this before I talk about it?
Well, they haven't really talked much about what the ride system is going to do or what it's going to operate as. I think that they said it was going to be similar to the recent Peter Pan edition that they had at Fantasy Springs over at Tokyo Disney Sea. I think that they said it was going to be similar in format to that. The only thing that I found that was particularly interesting about that myself is that when you're looking at that staircase there, supposedly you are going in there straight. And you're going to go throughout an entire scene straight where it's kind of similar to if you're on the Haunted Mansion in Walt Disney World, that you, when you're going into the library is also at an angle. It's an angle that is parallel to the vehicles, and then you wouldn't be able to tell that unless the work lights were on. So when you're going up that staircase, it's actually straight on the ground. That's at least what the patent and everything says for that. I could be wrong about that, but it was very interesting to see that, but not a lot was revealed about that attraction at all.
I know that they announced the storyline was going to be going into, I want to say it's Antonio's bedroom, and then it was going to be having this encounters with all of these magical animals from that point on. And I did hear a few rumbles from people saying that they were a little frustrated that this might be another Tiana's where we're not actually going to follow the movie and we're going to have a new original story. And that I think that's my biggest hesitation with this is, are we going to have a compelling enough story where there's actual danger that we have to escape? Or is it just going to be kind of a fluffy, cutesy piece like Tiana's, which I think was a huge miss for Imagineering because they did not have the story that you need where there is a hero who overcomes, danger of some sort and then wins the day, which is why we love Disney attractions that allow us to do that. So I don't know exactly if that is going to be involved yet, so withholding my judgment until we know more about the story. But that is that attraction. Do you have anything else you want to share about this before I move on?
No, but I could riff on what you just said for like an hour and a half.
Okay, I think let's just leave it there because we have a lot to cover.
We'll just leave it there. So yeah.
Then of course we have the Indiana Jones attraction, and they did talk extensively about the modeling that they're doing of all of the characters and everything. The very, very historically driven storytelling on the outside of this temple for Mayan culture, and really was quite interesting. I'm very encouraged by this, Joshua. It seems a lot like the Disneyland version, but with its own story, which is fabulous in its own right, you know? And they're tying
a really huge serpent. I mean, the scale of that model and the fact that like they had a woman that was actually like sitting like on the tongue that looks like it's about the size of a king bed.
Oh yeah. Where is that here? Yes. Yeah. It's huge.
Yeah.
Gigantic compared to a person. Yeah. So that would be, of course, tying in kind of a mythical creature into this, you know, that is part of Mayan culture. But then we start to get kind of almost like a Beastly Kingdom vibe without the Beastly Kingdom part, which is kind of an interesting thing, you know? I hadn't really considered that till just now. But it is a bit more of a mythical creature, and so are the ones in Kanto. There's a lot of them as well. So I wonder if we're getting a little bit of the imagined creatures in this land after all. So... What? He's shaking your head.
Only you would get me to like this thing. I'm sorry, people. I'm apathetic about Tropical Americas.
Honestly, everything that I'm seeing from it, especially with Joe Rohde being in charge, I am so excited for this edition. I was never a huge fan of Dinosaur area. I understood the storyline. I thought the storyline was cute, but nobody understood his storyline, and so I'm okay with it being gone. And I think this is a great addition. So that's where I'm at. I think Dinosaur.
And I understand that, and Dinosaur was very hard to defend. I mean, like other than its music and some of its artwork and everything that you could see on my daily Johnny Media site. But that's about it. So yeah, there you go. Right? Yes. Which I was the first person to release any of that stuff and everything, actually sanctioned by the composer. Yeah, I guess what you're saying is correct. It's just like if you want to go ahead and go the mythical vibe and everything. So yeah, this is kind of like a mythical kingdom.
Beastly Kingdom. We're finally getting it in some way, just different than we planned. So very interesting. Okay, and then another thing in Tropical Americas that they did have there was the models for the carousel, which actually was a little bit of a left field for me. I did not think that they would do something so IP based for this. Was actually really surprising. I thought it would be more animals that were found there. And it is, what does it look like? What is the design style of this? Is like that sculpted. What is it?
It looks like Jim Shore.
Jim Shore, that's right. You know, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It looks like Jim Shore, like, you know, like pseudo folk carving. The only one of the things that I will say on this, because you know, like I have to, it's part of my brand, is be slightly dissenting, is that Joe Rohde did say specifically that there was going to be no carousel inside of his Animal Kingdom park, and this is happening.
Okay, but Walt Disney said there was going to be no roller coaster inside his, and then he had one with the Matterhorn. So sometimes people can change their minds. That's okay too.
Okay, cool. That's good.
I would say Ferris wheel, but he didn't approve the Ferris wheel, and I don't like the Ferris wheel. So anyway,
it's okay, yeah.
But the roller coaster, because it was themed, he didn't want it to be like amusement parks, and that's why. All right, let's roll on over to Piston Peak. Brace yourself, kids, but especially I'm talking to you, Joshua. So this is some of the concept art for it, just to refresh our minds of what this looks like. This is the one that had all of the geysers, and then we have this one that has the piston peak at the top, so a big waterfall coming down it, and what looks like a piston on the top, which also kind of reminiscent of Disneyland's like rolling rocks that were in Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland. I think there is a little bit of a connection there with that. This shows one of the cars going through kind of a wintry environment, and then of course this ride with I'm trying to remember her name, the giant school bus with the flames coming out of it. I can't remember. It's been a year since I've seen this movie. Here's what the model looks like. I have a lot of thoughts about this. My main thought about this model I think that there's a lot about this that's really, really well done. I will say I like the details. I like the throwback to a lot of like Disneyland, Frontierland stuff that they put in there. I like the national park vibe, very much like Grizzly Peak. It gives me Grizzly Peak vibes, but with Cars Land. So it's like a crossover between Grizzly Peak and Radiator Springs, I guess is what you would call this. I like, the lodge feel of the attraction building. I love the landscaping that they put in. Even the mountain looks kind of cool. So I guess we're getting kind of another Disney mountain in the parks. I also really like the geysers. They tie into the storyline of Big Thunder. And its geysers, or at least the original storyline, not the current one they currently have, but a lot of the geysers that were a throwback to Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland as well. I like that. The problem that I'm struggling with this, and I have a feeling you are very similar in how you feel, is that it's a great attraction that is in the wrong place. And that I have such a hard time moving on from that, not because I just want to be a dissenter. I can look at all these things and say, I like this. This is really cool. It's really great. They're putting a lot of thought and effort into this. I love that it can run apparently when it's raining outside. That's great. That's a win for Florida. I like the artwork for it. I love so much about it, but I hate where it is. I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't use the word hate very often. So that really shows like where I'm at with that.
She doesn't, people. Just, clock it.
It's just very frustrating that they put it smack dab in the middle of, they took out Rivers of America, first of all. Like, you know how much I love that. We don't need to get into that. I think if we get into that, we'll be here all day and everybody knows how we feel about that. But
yes,
it's frustrating.
Especially me. So.
It's frustrating to me that now that it's between Frontierland, so in the 1800s, and Big Thunder, which is like 1880s, and then the 1700s for Liberty Square, and then we have this in the middle of it. And I'm like, okay, so you can see the buildings for Frontierland on the back. And so I was like, I'm over here like, how could they make this work story-wise, okay? And like the only thing I could come up with is if they turned the Old West facades into like a ghost town. And it became like the Old West that died off over time, because those do exist, And I was like, and then somehow made Big Thunder into kind of like the runaway train in the old mine. I was like, I don't think they're going to do any retheming of that anytime soon, because they just redid it. So then I'm like, okay, so they could make it into a ghost town that's next to this kind of thriving national park. Okay, maybe. But I don't know what to do with Liberty Square. I got nothing. I'm like, I don't know. How does a haunted mansion live next to this? I don't know.
Yeah. I would say just like, like even more to add like salt in the wound is that just like, I think that like we're going to have to we're going to just have to come to terms with the fact that there is no such thing as themed lands anymore.
Not here,
in the Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
It's just like that. It's just a hodgepodge of things that maybe have some sort of aesthetic cohesion. I
think they still have Fantasyland still has a theme. I think the other lands do, but in this land, Liberty Square / Frontierland,
this third of the park, there is no such thing as a cohesive a narrative that has to do with that, and I do think that that's a problem. I think that that's because that's what the Disney brand is. That's what things are named after. That is exactly the reason why people do that, and it's not. And there are those people that would say it's just like, well, no one's verbalizing that. I'm just like, no, but these things subconsciously. Everyone knows these things subconsciously. If it wasn't the case of that, Six Flags would be just as profitable and successful as the Disney parks.
Right.
And that's just the way that is. Not to say that this is a Six Flags level investment, but it is a Six Flags level
design
theme that's brought into it. The thing that I keep coming back to is that, okay, so now that we have a lot more information and data to go off of, although it was very accurate to the I believe it was Greg Pro's concept art aerial of it, this is not that much different than what was showcased several years ago. It's just more finely detailed. Is that it looks like Cars Land and Grizzly Peak had a baby, and then they put it inside of Magic Kingdom.
Right.
So you can also define that as, okay, so you've taken the two most interesting or most successful
beautiful
mini lands of one of Disney's least successful, least popular theme parks and put it into your most popular park.
Yeah. I mean, so
figure out the calculus of that.
So I don't have a problem with Piston Peak in general. Like, a lot of people say that they like it and whatnot. I was like, I don't have a problem with this at all. I think it's actually really cute and really well designed. It's just in the wrong spot. And, you know, we had talked about previously about John Hench. You know, he made that article. He did an interview for New West magazine in 1978. And he talked about why Disneyland feels psychologically safe for us. And in that, he talks about because everything talks to one another, there's a sense of order and there's no chaos. There's nothing it's all visually cohesive. And so you don't see something that shouldn't be there next to something that everything talks to each other, different sides of Main Street. All the transitions are done very slowly so that you feel like you're being moved from one thing to another. The problem that I have with this, unless they figure out a way to make it cohesive, which maybe they can. I mean, Imagineers can do anything. So I'm not saying like this isn't possible, but what I'm seeing from this model and from what's around it, I was like, I'm not currently seeing that. And that I was like, let's get back to the fundamentals of Imagineering, is that there is visual cohesion in the parks, that the theme is just like we talked about with Joe Rohde, that everything is within that one theme. And so I'm like, can we get Joe Rohde to come over to Magic Kingdom and help us fix this?
An example of this would be something like, I've had friends in the past that would do some armchair Imagineering, that would say it's just like, and you know that I'm typically opposed to the armchair Imagineering myself, but they would say it's just like, okay, why can't you take the Speedway and convert that to a Cars experience?
Yeah.
Or convert that into something for, like, we can have the resurgence of Mr. Toad and you can have his wild ride cars over there. I've seen people talk about that before.
Yeah.
The problem with that is that you have that on one side of the street, and then you have on the opposite side, you have Tomorrowland. And
yeah, I mean, there's never been a great division between Tomorrowland and Fantasyland in Magic Kingdom. It's always been horribly designed.
It's a little bit of a weird thing.
It's always been you can see one from the other. Yeah. So I guess this is on theme with the Magic Kingdom.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But while it's supposed to work in a Disneyland style park, and Magic Kingdom is still one of those, is that it's divided in the way that you would divide a pie or a pizza. It's just like that, and the reason why they do that is so that everything inside of this one slice makes sense. Yeah. And then there's a hard cutter. There's a portal of some way that it's the bridge that connects to the Columbia Harbor House, that sort of thing, and then it goes to the next thing, and then you're able to tell something cohesive there. And also, nothing contradicts when you're going inside of it. Yeah. Like when you're looking at when you're at the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, it makes perfect sense that it connects over to New Orleans Square, that it connects to the Bayou. Now it was Critter Country, but those still were analogous to each other in this fight. And then you can see the Rivers of America, which also makes sense that they would build a mansion next to the river. And when you're looking when you're inside of the queue for the Haunted Mansion, you can see the river boats, and everything kind of makes sense with that. But when you're inside of the Haunted Mansion at the end of this project for the Magic Kingdom, and you're seeing across the way that you have, and I could be extraordinarily generous here and say that you have a national parks vibe next to a castellated manor house in the Hudson Valley. That just doesn't work.
It's weird.
I don't know
how they make it work. And yeah.
Yeah.
So now you've heard our thoughts about it. It's definitely it's not a bad attraction or ride or area. I think the Imagineers that are working on it are doing a lovely job with the theme of what they were given, and it just is in the wrong spot. That's all. And to bring that home, I did find a post from Eddie Soto, who has sadly departed from us, but I found it from a couple years back. You might know when he actually sketched out how they could do this Cars Land and Villains Land and keep a rivers of America in a different way, that it would be actually looks kind of like Stitch on its side if you're looking at it. But he redesigned it so that it would have existing Big Thunder Mountain. It'd have the water go all the way around Big Thunder. It would still have the canoes. It would have a path. It would he brought Lafitte into it because he had to, I think, for himself. But the riverboat would stay. And then you would have Cars, the whole new Cars Land at the top, which would then kind of still be connected to the river. And then Villains Land beyond. And this is what he had to say about it. He said, literally just penciled this out to show that you can have it all with a little imagination. Riverboat boards by TVA, track loops with switches, MS streetcars, allowing direct access to Big Thunder Mountain, even a stream for canoes to explore Big Thunder Mountain Cavern under the Rock Bridge, more land now to use for cars, but retains the immersive river experience. Tunnel to New Lafitte Island. Villains can be accessed by Haunted Mansion, also through Fantasyland Portal. It can all be done, you just have to want to. I hear the case is still closed, but was fun to Imagineer a bit. And so I just love that he did. He was like, hey, this can be done if you decide you want to do it. And at the time, I'm sure it's done now. Like, they've removed everything, so there's no going back. We are just this is what it is. But it could have been done in such a way where we could have this really cool new land that's going to be great for families, and I think is needed in the Magic Kingdom. At least something of its ilk is needed in the Magic Kingdom because they need more attractions. But it just could have been placed in a different place and still would have kept the history and the nostalgia and the vibe and the storytelling and the theme and still been able to do this. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but I think Eddie Soto had it right, and I'm sad that they didn't go that direction. So
I agree, and I've said over the past several years all that I can possibly say about the Magic Kingdom with this. True.
We should move on.
It's best that I move on.
We got a couple more things to talk about. We're talking about all the projects they currently have going, and then we'll talk about the newer stuff here. But they have the Carousel of Progress, just to remind you what they're updating for this. Kate has her own thoughts about Carousel, but she's already been negative enough for today, so she's going to try to be positive about this one. This is what the model looks like that we saw here at D23.
Which it seems like they're bumping up the timeline too with that, because now Act 2 is Halloween. Because Act 3 was Halloween in the other one.
Yes.
That was something that they brought in with the 1993 version, by the way. That from what I understand. Oh, wait a minute. Am I correct in saying that? I think I am.
I'd have to look it up.
We'll have to look at the notes. But I think that the whole entire concept of having them not just move through time, but move through the seasons, I think that originated with the 93 version.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But yeah, it's weird that we're going through like these two different concepts and everything. Kate's a little bit more optimistic with Piston Peak. I'm a little bit more optimistic with Carousel of Progress here. It's
At
a
least
weird
they're
area for both of us
somehow. At least I just wish they would bring it to Disneyland. That's all. So who knows? Maybe they will.
Well, that's what I'm hoping there too. Yeah. That's been my theory for a little while. It's just like, like you can do the thing. It's just like you can build two at half the price, which is what they do.
I don't want this one in Disneyland. I want the original at Disneyland. Right.
I'm sorry. Clear. Yes, I just heard that myself. Yes.
You can have this one at Magic Kingdom. Go for it. Okay. Do all your new stuff there. Okay. Just bring us the original back home to Disneyland. We can.
I am all for this as well.
Repair it to make it more like it used to be. Yes. That's great. But yeah, no, I mean, it's honestly, I do like the vintage vibes they put in here. If as long as they're preserving the original somehow and not completely ripping it out and throwing it out, fine. This is great. This will be great. I'm sure it'll be a great show. I really don't have any issues with this as long as they're preserving the original. That was my main concern. But then you can see this one that has this kind of like stone fireplace in it. And then we saw the model of it look like this. Very similar in D23. And they really didn't give us very much information about this, at all.
No. Well, the thing that they released as an aside for this is that apparently the new father is going to be Bryan Cranston of Breaking Bad fame, and what was Malcolm in the Middle? I think he was the dad on it as well. And Jamie Lee Curtis will be the new mom.
Oh yeah, I do like that.
So
yeah.
So I think that both of their voices and everything, they're great. The entire thing that this is going to go off of, because the sets and everything that they're designing and everything look really good. They look really top notch on there. But really what makes or breaks the Carousel of Progress is going to be your script.
Yep. That's what I was gonna say.
If they could, and really, and that's one of the things that's like the least cost that it is, but you have to get the tone of this attraction very, you have to hit it over the head very precisely. So I'm really hoping that, it's great that you're going to have new technologies in this. It's great that you're going to have all these wonderful aesthetics. For different areas. It's going to be fun to have a 1980s scene with this as well. But at the same time, just like you've got to get this script done, because if it's a horrible script, then none of that stuff is going to matter.
Right. No, I agree. 100%. So the last thing we have that we know that they had already announced that's coming, but that they're building, is the Villains Land. And we did learn a whole lot more. We got some more concept art about this story, about a poisoned wishing well in the dark forest and all of these things. And actually, concept art very reminiscent of Ivan Earl and Sleeping Beauty. So really leaning heavily into Maleficent, at least with this new coaster that they have going on, which I'm not going to lie, this looks fantastic. No. This looks really good.
You and I are both big Maleficent fans anyway. So that makes a little bit more sense. I really like the concept art that they're going with that.
It looks beautiful in terms of its artistic style, and if they can capture that feel in an attraction, that's going to be a really amazing one. I had worried because people said that it was going to be a really intense thrill ride. I was worried that it was going to be kind of like an upside down kind of coaster, but the concept art doesn't look like that from the safety bars and stuff that they have. So, because I would like to say, if they could make something that kids could go on and not just like teenagers and up, I think that would be good considering the attraction.
And the fact that it's in the Magic Kingdom. So.
Yeah. But then we did get we have this boat ride too. That's a whole bunch of villains as well. I'm going to have to know a little bit more about the story for this in order to kind of make a formal opinion. But I mean, everything I'm seeing looks very well researched and well designed in terms of like what they're really doing a lot of consideration about the villains, their stories, what they're putting in here, and the details of getting all that right, which sounds really great to me. So I think I'm encouraged by that. We did see this model of the coaster come out as well. So it has to do with like her castle and everything from Maleficent. Did you have anything you wanted to say about these in particular there, Joshua?
Well, as we do, that we're in like creative professions and everything, I tend to focus on the problems more than the successes. I do like the way that the concept art looks and everything. The concept art looks gorgeous. Actually, with the whole entire poisoned well thing, it has a very strong, not just an Ivan Earl or a Maleficent vibe, but it also has a Black Cauldron aesthetic that is very, very close to that as well. So it looks like the undead warriors and everything that are pouring out there. So
for all those Black Cauldron fans out there, they'll be all set.
Yes, all those Black Cauldron fans.
All three of them.
Yes, exactly right. I like its music, but that's about it. And it does have really nice background art at the end. And I suppose that the cute little clairvoyant pig is good too. Anyway, I should stop. Because I'm not gonna be a Black Cauldron stan. I refuse. But
wise choice.
But yeah, exactly. Yeah. I've already had one thing with black in the title that I already said, and I've already annoyed you with.
Yeah,
so I'm not going to go.
You have reached your black quota for the day on Distory Nite Shift. Yes.
But looking at the model that was released which was a totally separate thing from D23.
Yeah.
That happened exactly at the same time. So that's a weird branding thing.
Very strange.
Very, very strange. I have strong concerns with this.
Why?
Because it looks like it's for lack of a more appropriate term, probably one that's a little bit more PG. This looks like a naked coaster.
I was thinking about that too, and I wonder if it's just not done. And that's why they didn't put it.
I would hope that that's it. Yeah,
because I want to say that that's why they didn't bring it to D23 because it's just so unfinished. Because a lot of it is outdoors and exposed, very Universal-esque.
And that's a very Thank you. Yeah, exactly. We're
Yeah.
both on the same wavelength with that. Is that because I'm like, this looks like a little bit of a Velocicoaster meets a Hagrid's knockoff.
Yeah, although I love
So like,
Hagrid's, not gonna lie. I do
yeah,
like
it's
Hagrid's a
great.
lot.
Yeah, exactly. But it's great in the context of Universal. You can have exposed. I guess it's a more appropriate word. Exposed coaster than you do at Disney. Disney does not do exposed coasters. They
No.
really don't, especially in the context of these things. Yes, you can look at something like Slinky Dog, but that's supposed to look like a toy. You can look at like Barnstormer. That's a completely different thing as well. When you're talking about like these lands, like you're putting something that is inside of a villain's land, which is right next to Fantasyland, and the proximity of these things, I'm like, I have issues with looking at it that way because I don't feel like I'm in the storyline of Sleeping Beauty and Maleficent's Forbidden Mountain. I look at that and I see, I'm just like, okay, this is a thrill ride where they put props from the movie around it. I'm sorry. That's
Yeah.
just the way that I'm seeing it right
I
now.
mean,
So
they kind of have that with what's it called? Seven Dwarfs Mine Train has a lot of kind of outdoor track that uses a lot of landscaping for its,
yeah,
theming.
but
It
it is
doesn't.
closed in, so it does look like a train, So
Yeah, I don't have any problems with Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. I'm just saying, like maybe that's what they're
right.
going to be going for, is a lot more landscaping that we just don't see in this model. I think this model's not finished. If I had to put in my 2 cents, I think it's not
That
finished.
could be
So,
the reason why they didn't debut it. It's just like
right.
it's just not. Yeah, so, yeah.
Right. It's nowhere near being show ready for people to photograph and be like, this is what we're getting. And I think that they know that, and that's why they didn't premiere it at D23. For whatever reason, it wasn't ready. But I think that it's just I just think it's unfinished. That's where I'm at with that. The other things we did see though at D23 for Villains Land was these sculptures of these like scary trees, which of course is a throwback to Gustav Tengren's work with Snow White back in the 1930s. He had created all these really creepy trees that, of course, we've seen in other Disney attractions, Snow White's Scary Adventures. They put a version of them in the Haunted Mansion. They show up again and again. Claude Coates did a lot of work with those trees as well. So it's fun to see them, especially to scale with the people that are there. They're very small, and those trees are gigantic. So to see how they end up using those trees in the land will be really interesting to see. I did like those models, but we did not get very many of them. We got these just two little things, and that's it. So it was very sparse at D23 this year for Imagineering. Like they didn't even have. Last time they had like all like a costume showcase, and they had like a whole illusion area, and they had like a whole bunch more places to actually like interact, like show the new technology they were doing. Like this year, it was just like, here's a couple of models, the end. It was very strange that it was not the same as it had been the previous time. So that brings us to the end of the things that we knew about for Imagineering. But now we're going to transition into the things that they just announced, which a lot of people are just like, oh, this could have been an email and or like, we don't really know more details. But I just want to put this in your mind before we look at all these things, that all the things that we just left seem like a different era of Imagineering in some ways, where it was very focused on IP. It wasn't very history focused. It wasn't necessarily things like the fans were asking for, but things we got anyway. And now it seems like things we've been asking for years, the things that we've been crying out for, please just do this. They're like, we're going to do that. And we're going to do this. And we're going to bring back in some of these older Imagineers who were trained under the original Imagineers, to bring back some of the history and culture that we've kind of like lost along the way. And now they haven't said any of that. This is just me like speculating, but that's what it feels like is happening here. Would you agree with that, Joshua?
Yeah. I was thinking about like what's the connective tissue with the things that they've most recently announced, and I would include the Carousel of Progress in this as well. Not just that, and not just the things that we're just about to talk about. Is that it does look like they are finally breaking free of the chains which were brought onto them by the Bob Chapek, Bob Iger administration, which is only IP attractions exclusively.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it does seem great that they're doing that. And there are tons and tons of ways and reasons why that is extraordinarily important, that you have unique attractions inside of a theme park. You need to have things that actually are created specifically for this medium. There's tons of like reasons. I could come up with literally 100 of them, and I have done that over many years. I've been fighting against this for a very, very long time, and it looks like, like eventually, if you just wait for a lot longer, things cycle around again. And one of the things that I would definitely say about, like, I was watching a presentation that we didn't get to attend, but somebody recorded on YouTube of when Jennifer Goodwin was interviewing Josh D'Amaro. And the jury's been out on him for a long time. We've been extraordinarily skeptical of him, but it looks like he is really, like, the greatest thing that we can say about him right now is he comes from a very strong parks background.
Yeah.
And he is the first Disney executive to ever come from there.
Yeah.
Which means that he also is from the most important division of the company. It is the division of the company that holds 2/3 of the revenue for the entire organization. And so you kind of should devote yourself to that. The other thing that I found out, in that presentation, which was kind of like, I'm sorry, it was puffy. I mean, there wasn't that much information, but the one thing that I did glean from that I thought that was really interesting is that he has revived the Walt Disney tradition, and it was carried on by Michael Eisner too, of insisting on going into the park by himself.
Yeah.
That he does, even as the executive right now, he tries to escape his entourage and tries to come in looking at it as a guest. So that is something that is extraordinarily encouraging for me for that.
Yeah, as I think all the Imagineers should do, like they used to do. I think that even if you have to go incognito and wear a hat and sunglasses or whatever, just so people don't recognize you, like anything you can do to go in the park, stand in line with your guests in standby, or use the lightning lane system on your phone all day like a regular guest would, and see how some of the things that might be frustrating, and really like do what they originally did, which was stand and listen to the guests, listen to things people are enjoying, listen to things that their frustrations. Like, I think that culture is so critically important to the Imagineers because they're creating these spaces that we live in and we love, but there's also so many things where we feel like we're so unheard. And so them doing that beyond just listening to the things that we're all saying, also going into the parks and just hearing from your guests and living like one and getting that experience is so critical. So that's great. I think that's fantastic that he's doing that.
Yeah. And, it actually ties back to a couple of things that we already just discussed without us ever intending on this, because these are impromptu conversations, people. Is that it goes back to what Joe Rohde was saying with the flat organization.
Yeah.
And, that the thing that I was really like super fascinated about that with his angle on that is that that's the reason why, because Walt did that. There was no one that was between him and his staff and everything. There was no middle management. There was no filter that was going through that somebody had a certain agenda that was just like they wanted to make the person that was underneath them either look better than they were or worse than they are. Walt knew exactly what that was going on with. So if Josh is continuing that tradition, then that would be pretty amazing for him to actually do that, to flatten out his organization.
Yeah.
That's what really Disney needs more than anything else, is to flatten that. And also like listening to people, knowing it's just like, okay, no, this is what people are really experiencing. This is what the things are really like. I don't think that he's using My Magic Plus, but I would really love if he would do that. And I would really encourage, like, if they were going to do that with the executives, just like, okay, yeah, this is just not working this way. This is not the way that we want people to experience this. And then,
it sounds like
hopefully come up with a better system.
They're saying like, we want to get guests off of their phones more and whatnot. I was like,
yes. Yeah. Because the Play app is going away, which is great, overall. So,
we want to escape, like us as guests, we want to escape the real world when we go in the parks. As Walt Disney knew that, and so having to be on our phones constantly, even if we're in the Disney apps, we don't want to be on our phones all day. We want to escape the digital life, and B, when we're on our phones, other things ping us and whatnot, because you have to have notifications on. Like, you can't just like turn your phone off and put it in your pocket. You have to be engaged on it. So I love that they're like, how can we make that so that the guests have to do that less, I think is great. Although I like mobile ordering. Please don't take that away, Imagineering. I like that.
Yes. She really
Everything
likes
but that. I like
She
mobile
really
ordering. I
likes
don't like
that.
standing in line. So,
We can
okay.
understand that too. It's good.
That being said, we got to move on because we have time. So let's talk about some of the new things that they announced. And this one, I was so delighted by this. This actually made me like, I'm so happy that the Disneyland Paris is going back to, maybe in a refreshed version, its original version of Space Mountain. I'm so happy about this, that we're getting the Jules Verne version that Tony Baxter kind of originally imagined for this land. Because I've told you recently, like last time I went to Disneyland Paris, I was like, oh, Tomorrowland is so sad. It's got like Hyperspace Mountain that doesn't make any sense in the middle, and all of the sense of theme has completely disappeared from this land. And so from the Earth to the Moon coming back, I'm so thrilled. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about it too.
Well, I'm ecstatic about this, and it's great for, it's just like, because we can be excited about this just from, like, and it's truly just amazing that they're actually going ahead and going through this. I can't imagine something like this happening during the Iger administration.
Yeah.
I just can't see that, because of course, like, he bought Star Wars. Star Wars is his baby. They're going to ram that through every single possible thing as long as they possibly can. Now that we're in a new era, it's just like, it's great that they are going through this. The other thing that I would note about this, and this speaks to all the other announcements, the new announcements that they made at D23. It's very smart to realize, just like, you do realize that this is going to be a very budget conscious conversion.
Yeah.
This is not going to be something that's going to be $100 million here. This is going to be like, it probably in the neighborhood of, I would guess, probably like 30, maybe $35 million. In other words, very cheap. And it's also going to be extraordinarily beneficial to you in the long run, because you're going to have a lot more people that are going to be much more interested in this. It didn't make sense to put Star Wars inside of this Victorian conical thing,
only as like a
cannon.
Temporary thing. Like Disneyland does Hyperspace Mountain for a season. Like if they did that for a season,
right,
like fine, if that's what we want to do.
Or for like a Halloween party or whatever it is,
right.
It's just like, like something like that, something goofy like that makes no sense. Okay, fine, but is something that's a permanent addition, that's abhorrent. So this is awesome that they're doing that, and they're bringing back the Stellar Way, the walk-through space where you can actually see the mountain again.
Yeah,
looks like they're going to be repairing the Columbiad so that it actually does that retraction. I'm thinking of the wrong word here because I'm not into guns. Recoil. Yes, the recoil that's doing. So that's great that they're doing all of that with that, and making that land a little bit more cohesive again. If we could get rid of Buzz from the Imagineering theater, that would be great too.
One thing at a time. Although I think we got to go one thing at a time.
Right.
One
exactly.
step at a time.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm the mouse that you gave a cookie and now he wants a glass of milk. I'm just going to be that way. I'm sorry. Although it is on that concept art, there is Nine Eye. There's a hidden Nine Eye on there, so that's really cool. So maybe Nine Eye comes back as like I don't know, the safety spiel person or something. But with that one, but that's probably the easiest thing for them to do. But yeah, super excited about that. Très magnifique. So
I can't wait. It's going to be great. Yeah. So let's move on. We got a couple more things to talk about before we wrap this up. But of course, everybody's talking about the Yeti being restored back over in Expedition Everest in the Animal Kingdom Park. And of course, Joe Rohde had always promised that he would do it before he left Imagineering. And now he's working as a consultant with Imagineering. And I saw recently today that it was Josh D'Amaro's wife, I believe. When he got his new position, his wife said, "So you're going to restore the Yeti now, right?" So there might have been a little, pressure from home about that one. So thank you to her. But this is, again, this is something people have been asking about for years. Although the Disco Yeti is now just iconic in its own right, but it's not nearly as great as having an animatronic Yeti. And you and I have both speculated that this probably will not they probably will not go down to fix this until Tropical Americas opens, just because there's not enough attractions in that park to support anything without Tropical Americas open at the same time. So we probably won't see this for a little bit yet, but I'm excited about this one. This is great.
Yeah, well, they've had the plan in the works for years, and unfortunately, Joe has had to hear a lot of criticism over the years for this when he had nothing to do with it. And I've said that before. I've said that many times before on shows that I was on before this. Is just like that he, like once it's turned over to operations, it's their thing, and they decide. It's the VP of whatever the VP is of Disney's Animal Kingdom that decides whether or not they're actually going to do this, and it basically is a logistical problem right now because they don't because they can't bring down a major attraction inside of that park because the park is so anemic when you're dealing with actual attractions that people actually go on. So. It's probably going to be right after the Tropical Americas. Of course, they could also surprise us like they did with the other announcement, which we're going to tease in a moment, and where it's just like, oh no, this comes first.
Yeah.
So they could do that as well. They could just say, oh no, we're going to take it down. We're going to do it really quickly, because that's the other thing that, like we were in a temporal distortion field in the JPEG era where we thought that things take 6 or 7 years when they should take only like 1.5. So maybe this only is like a very short, like 3-6 month thing, and we're done with it.
Yeah, we'll have to see. And, they always said, like, they'll have to take off the top half of the mountain to do it or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see what they choose to do with it to make it structurally sound and whatnot. But I'm interested in it. I'm glad that they announced it. I think it was great. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. But let's talk about Tomorrowland and Disneyland, which this one, I was like so happy about this one because if you've watched history for any length of time, I've been talking about this. Like, I would love for them to restore kind of a retro futuristic Tomorrowland of like Walt's Tomorrowland. And it does sound like that's what they're going to do. Of course, we don't have like any details, but I'd be shocked if they didn't restore some sort of version of the People Mover with this. People will revolt if they don't. So, yeah. You have speculation about this one, Joshua.
There's only one. So one thing that people have rightly been cautious about is that they said it's just like more wide open spaces. I'm like, okay,
yeah. What does that mean?
Because that could be very awesome. We're maybe like, so you're going to get rid of that ball and that fountain area and
the Kugel ball. I like the Kugel ball. Take the Kugel and keep that one. But
okay, you can keep that, but not all the stuff around it. But
I think that they're probably going to demolish the People Mover loading platform. I have a feeling is going away.
That's what I heard that they were going to do that without. So there are certain things that you could do that. We're also fearful of what they will do with the Carousel Theater. But the tagline that they have there is yesterday's tomorrow today. That's very encouraging. That means that they are going for a retro futuristic vibe. That is also, and you can tell from the artwork, they are trying to go for a more classic 1967 to 1975.
I love everything about this artwork. I would hang this on my wall. It's so beautiful.
Yes, right. Yes, exactly.
Imagineering, whoever you have doing this, you did a great job.
Yes,
good job.
Exactly. Yes.
Please give us more of this. This is what we want.
I just figured out one reason why you like this so much.
The stars everywhere. The Dharma stars.
Well, no, because the whole entire design is white.
Oh yeah. Well, it's not white. It's blue. It's shades of blue.
No, I'm talking about all the architecture from '67. It's all just white on white on white on white.
It's beautiful. Okay.
Yes, it is gorgeous. It is gorgeous. I get it, but I also get why you like it on a certain level.
And also those little stars that I love. So I love that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I was looking at that too. So yeah, it has the things that I now call the DC stars on there. Yes. So
I think that we'll have to wait and see what they announce exactly with it. If I was optimistic, I'd say for sure bring back the People Mover and put the Carousel Progress Show back in that building, which would then bring back this history. Of course, maybe a newer version of the People Mover-ish that's maybe retro designed, but newer like more like the linear induction motor version that we have in Walt Disney World, which is, or something even newer than that potentially. But All of those things for sure. I won't get as ambitious as to say the Skyway and things like, things that we could have back at probably not. But People Mover and something in the Carousel Theater, hopefully not demolishing it and creating this giant hole there. That would be very sad. But yeah, I'm thrilled with this announcement. It's been a long time coming, and thank goodness they're finally doing something. I mean,
and the thing about that is just like right now, like, I hate to sound cynical about it, but to quote Michael Eisner, just like, you can't fall off the floor. Like
I couldn't get
Disneyland's is a person who is now living on the West Coast myself, and now Disneyland is my home. Although Walt Disney World is where I grew up. Is that now I definitely feel the pain now on this, and just like like, it's hard. It's a horrible land. It's and it's very tragic that it's in Walt Disney's park. So just like you can't do any worse than the way it is right now. So go ahead, try to do something with it. The other thing that I thought that was encouraging as well is that, because people were saying, oh, well, you're going to do this after Avatar, which is mean we're not going to see this until like the 2030s. They're like, no, this is a priority. This is going to be done beforehand.
Yeah, which is so great.
So I really appreciate that. So yeah, I'm optimistic about it. So
private shout out to any Imagineers who may happen to listen to this podcast, which they probably don't. But if they do, please make sure in all of everything that you're doing, save the Breclinata palm that's at the exit of Autopia, because it was a tribute to Walt Disney that Bill Evans planted with Rolly Crump at 3 a.m. He bought it with his own money because he always wanted that tree, and Walt always said someday, 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 and then Walt passed away and he bought it and planted it, and it is a tribute to Walt Disney that is unlabeled. And I always get nervous that the Imagineers don't know that that's what that tree is.
Right.
So please, I'm hoping that like the horticulture teams know about that, but in case they don't, please save that tree. Do whatever you need to do. Don't get rid of that tree. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
So
please do that. I do not want to have to deal with Kate and her disappointment if you do this.
I will
please
cry.
Just please save the tree. Please save the tree.
All right, let's move on. This one you're gonna have to talk about mostly because you are E82 guy. So we're going to talk about Spaceship Earth. The next chapter begins. Talk to us about what you think about this, Mr. 82.
Well, the reason why like no one's talking about it is because they didn't say anything. It's just like it's just the only thing that they did say that was they gave me a lot of they gave me some hope with it, is that it looks like that they have completely abandoned the project that they were going to do with the Project Gamma, where it was going to be like how stories connect us together, which is far off the mark of what Spaceship Earth is about. And they said that it's going to be going back to a connections thing, which is really harkens back to the first 3 versions of Spaceship Earth. The first 3 versions were entirely about communication. Communication is basically about connection, in a more broad sense. And then the version that's right now is Inventing Tomorrow, which has an extraordinarily patronizing script on it. Like Dame Judi Dench did her best, but she was directed poorly, is what I believe. But hopefully we get a new version that actually goes back to a little bit more of a serious vein, a little bit more of a gravitas towards what you're dealing with, because this is talking about Spaceship Earth. Spaceship Earth is not just the name of the pavilion and name of the structure. Spaceship Earth is an entire philosophy that was developed by Buckmaster Fuller, that we are all passengers on this spaceship and that we need to take care of it as much as we possibly can, because it is the only place that we are going to ever be. There will be no vast Mars colonies. There will be no interstellar travel unless we conquer warp drive, which we will never do because that breaks all the laws of physics. This is all we have. This wonderful blue marble. That is all that we have. And making sure that is a serious tone for that attraction. You can still have a wondrous experience, but nevertheless be something that's taken seriously. So I really hope that they're doing that. And the fact that, just from the the little bit of concept that they produced there, it is sort of dark and sort of mysterious. So hopefully they're going
right
back to that look. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. You can have your super white Tomorrowland, and I can have my practically in the dark spaceship Earth, and we're gonna be good.
It's true. Well, I will say, I would absolutely love. I know that it's really hard because it's extremely poetic, but that like I want to say 26-page original script by Ray Bradbury, who wrote this for Spaceship Earth, all about communication. One of the most beautiful things that I've ever read about a Disney park is that script, and the fact that they kind of had to like throw out most of it because it was just a little bit too poetic for people to like get it as they were on the attraction. But using that as a way to shape that new version, I think would be a brilliant move, because there's so many moments of profundity in that script that I think have been lost along the way, about communication and how important it is that we are all together on our spaceship Earth. So I'm very excited that it seems to be that they're returning to its roots in a lot of ways. I think that's fantastic, and I'm just so thrilled that they're making that decision. That's a great one. So sounds like you approve of the potential for this one as a EA2 guy over there.
I like the shift. That they're making. Like you were way off in left field, but now you're getting a little bit more towards the center.
Yeah.
So that's
It'll be interesting to see what comes of that. But speaking of Epcot, last but not least, we have Dreamfinder, which they really just threw in at the end of the show of like, we're bringing it back, folks. Ta-da!
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about this one a little bit?
Yeah. So it's one of the things I'm trying to temper my excitement with everyone else, because to be quite honest, they didn't say anything. They really didn't say that much at all about it, other than Dreamfinder is coming back. Now, I know from internal sources and things about why he was removed and why he would not come back, and then now he is coming back. And I'll just leave it at that. But it is great that they're bringing back him as the mentor to Figment.
Yeah.
I wrote about this many years ago, but the reason why, like, there are children that are around today that just do not understand why people in their 40s have such an affinity for this annoying purple dragon.
So my children don't understand Dreamfinder. They think he's creepy, because they're like, who the heck is that? I was like, oh no, I have failed you as a mother.
Yes.
But they like Figment because he's still in the attraction, and they know him from but they have no idea who Dreamfinder is. I'm like, oh, how tragic it is that we have Figment but not Dreamfinder.
Yeah, so he's supposed to, like, he was intended to be a Santa Claus like a figure. He just wears blue instead of red. And also the way that he works as a framing device, because you have the two sides of imagination with both of them. You have the unbridled creativity of a child, which is Figment, and then you have Dreamfinder, which is encouraging him, but also is able to tell him like what the practical applications of imagination are. That you can do so in literature and art and science and technology, and you can do all of those things with that. So he. It's great that you could do that, because a lot of people have a justifiable criticism of Figment that he's annoying. And the reason why he's annoying is because Eric Idle thinks that he's annoying in the attraction. So he is the framing device for that.
Right.
He's an annoyance for you with that. But if he loved Figment the way that his creator Dreamfinder did, then, that you would have a completely different mood, a completely different tone for that. So I think it's great that they're doing that. I hope that they're able to. I hope that they're able to restore a lot of that attraction. I think that I have hopes for it, but again, there's nothing that they said other than he's going to be there. And of course, I had to throw in there for you that he didn't that you have Dreamfinder and that you have Dreamfinder meeting with Nixon. He has his tomorrow's child on his arm, and Figment has Dreamfinder has Figment on his, so it just all goes together.
Thank
there.
you.
So
How I love Nixon and Disney and all of his many connections.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Well, I am so encouraged by the new things that they're presenting, by the people that they're bringing back into the fold to, speak to what Imagineering was all about, and also just listening to their fans. And we had a little discourse with a friend of mine that, said, but they have to, appeal to the greatest masses and like not just the hardcore Disney fans. And I'm like, listen, like, if you get all of the Disney fans, everybody else will fall in line because all the Disney fans will convince them why this is an amazing thing. Like you don't have like, and why in the world would you not design for your biggest fans? Why would you not design for them? Because they're the ones that keep coming back again and again and who love this. And think of the Disney parks as home. And so it's just so encouraging the direction that they're going in. And I've always said, even this, it's been a very dark time for the parks for a little while. And I think a lot of people have felt very discouraged. A lot of people have said, I've stopped going. And I always say that Disney is bigger than whoever's leading it at the current moment. It will always be. It's goes way back to Walt Disney and Snow White, and like this culture that has built, the meaning that it has for us, the nostalgia that we have will always supersede anybody who's in office at the time making decisions. And so I always said, just wait long enough. You wait long enough. I think my mom has an expression like, if when you're driving and there's like a semi that gets in front of you, if you wait long enough, the truck will pull off the road. And you just have to wait it out. And it's okay in that meantime if you just kind of like take a little break or do a breather or whatever you need to do. But I'm so encouraged that I'm like, oh, we can be, it feels like there's an excitement about it again, that like, oh, like people listen and care about us, and like how wonderful that feeling is to be heard, which is all kind of what we want as humans, is to be heard. And it feels like
Right.
we've been ignored for a really long time. So just
Yes. Yeah.
really, really, really happy with the direction that things are going. And I'm interested to see where they go from here. So what are your thoughts here, Joshua, as we wrap up?
Well, yeah, I would just echo everything that you basically said with that. This has been a very difficult time period, and I would also add, it's just like to riff off of something else, I would say it's just like there's nothing wrong with Disney that can't be cured by what is right about it.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like there have been so many people that have seen my trials and tribulations with the company over the past like several years, and they were just like, okay, well then just give up, just go away with it. Why are you pursuing this? Why are you fighting for the legacy of this company and everything? I'm just like, because I'm not going to discount the first 85 for the last 15
Yeah.
of the years. I'm not gonna discount that. It's just like in the first 85 was a proven method, and this last 15 years is proving itself to be problematic. So it's just like it's going to eventually come around. There's of course damage and casualties involved with it, but there is hope that we can go and we can restore these things. It's just like if we lost the rivers of America, but we regained Tomorrowland, and we regained some semblance of Epcot with Spaceship Earth and with Dreamfinder and with creativity and everything and optimism. I can live with that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's like we may never have what we had before, but we might get some pieces of it back, and at least the spirit of it returning, which I think is the biggest thing that we want. I don't necessarily need, as much as I would love like a lot of the classic attractions just coming back full stop, we don't necessarily need the classic attractions so much as what they represented to us, like the Tomorrowland, the hope of a better future in Tomorrowland that we had, that was Walt's, that it was like, we're dreaming of space travel and what could be in the future and these things. And it's like,
yeah,
and all Tomorrowland's been doing is decaying. And that communicates to us
right,
that there is no tomorrow to be hopeful about. And so
exactly.
if we can recapture that spirit, that there is hope for the future, that in itself is something that will make the parks come back to life.
We're right, exactly, yeah, and we're we're doing that thing where we have this Wi-Fi where we're connected with this quite frequently, because you're stealing all of my lines that I was going to say, which we never even prepared beforehand. So that like there was one friend that I had one time. It's just like, okay, why do you even need to have a Tomorrowland if it's so problematic that you can't, like the whole entire Tomorrowland paradox that, like what you create today will eventually become yesterday land and everything else. Right. It's just, I'm like, because this completes the equation. It's just like the Disneyland model, which is permeating every single castle park and everything. It's just like, you have the escapism, and you have the adventure, and you have the history that's going on in the rest of the park, and you have our idealized fantasies that come from the old world that our country was born out of. You need to have, at the end of the day, at the end of your experience, because you're supposed to go around, you're supposed to start at Adventureland and then go all the way around to it. At the end of the day, you need to know, it's just like, okay, yes, you spent this entire day absorbed in this cocoon-like experience, but, we're working on things that are going to be better for tomorrow. We're going to make sure that, that tomorrow is better than today. And isn't that great to just be part of the human experience with that?
Yeah. Well, and I think, so much about what Walt Disney established with Disneyland was, of course, nostalgia and adventure, and then hope. It really was this optimism for the future. And, we saw that in the World's Fair and all these kinds of things. But that was so much of the Disney brand, was hope for the future. And if there was ever a time when we needed to have hope for the future, it is now, So I'm very excited to see them choose to invest in this land, which not only just has practical things that we would like to be able to enjoy it again, but also that it communicates that there is a future and it's worth fighting for, and it's going to be a good one. And I think that is what we're seeing here, and that's why people are so excited that, oh my goodness, even if we don't have all the information yet, yes, they could have included more models, more information, more something, and I think they will over time. But just the idea that they care enough to listen to us and then give us some hope in multiple ways, I think is such a wonderful thing. So we have definitely talked all of this for quite a long time, way longer than I had planned, but we had a lot of wonderful things to share with you guys, and also some interesting discussion about what's coming up here. But I think this is where we have to wrap it up for now. Joshua, do you have any final thoughts here as we wrap up?
Well, I mean, I can echo exactly what I said the last time we were on Disney, or even before D23, which is, to quote Dr. Marsh, the future is in the past.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm very honored to get to share bits and pieces of the history that have been lost alongside you and Kirk here at Distory all the time. And I wanted to say thank you to the Imagineers and whoever is developing these things, doing their research into the history and bringing it back to us. Thank you so much for what you're doing, and it means so much to all of us. So from the bottom of my heart, as a historian, my little historian heart, thank you so much for listening to us, because it means the world. But thank you, everybody, for joining us for this episode of Distory Nite Shift. We hope that you enjoyed going on a little virtual tour with us through D23 from a historian's perspective, and that you can be excited alongside us for some of the things that are to come. Next time on Distory, Kirk and I are going to head into the treasure room on Pirates of the Caribbean and dig into all the little details that are in there, and some of the changes, but mostly we're going to talk about history in that space. So it'll be a really fun one. And then, of course, we'll be back for Distory Nite Shift after that. But until then, have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time for another episode of Distory.